Chapter 26. Zeris took a quick look at the two captains, who had been with him for the past 3 years. 3 years is neither too long nor too short. As the boss, it's time to give some rewards. These 2 stone monitor lizards are a reward for you. Keep them as pets. Zeris's words were as plain as when he was distributing items. Corver and Pansy showed a hint of surprise on their faces. The former immediately reacted and bowed his head to thank them. Thank God for the gift. I will definitely live up to your Majesty's expectations. Pansy was confused, but after she came to her senses, she imitated Kofer's behavior. Thank God for the gift. I will definitely live up to your Majesty's expectations. Zeris nodded slightly in affirmation. I can feel at ease leaving the stone monitor lizard to the 2 of them. It's impossible for 2 mid-level people to be fooled by a low-level peak stone monitor lizard with no intelligence, right? But now he has something more important to do, which is to find them before the spider apes completely leave. After explaining everything, Zeris flapped his wings, took off into the air, and sped off in a familiar direction. On the way, he met the stone monitor lizard that he had killed before. There was no animal around the dead monitor lizard, making it seem unusually deserted. This situation is normal. The stone monitor can be regarded as a small overlord in this area. Any creature with a little bit of brains will not easily approach such a powerful creature, even if it has suddenly died. Look at the death of the stone monitor lizard. The spine was broken, the whole body sank into the ground, and it had a look of fear before death. No one knew what the stone monitor lizard had experienced, but they knew that the stone monitor lizard must not have died of natural causes. Even a defense as strong as the stone monitor lizard could not withstand the attack. There was no doubt that it was slaughtered by a more powerful creature. Ordinary creatures would not want to risk their lives for a few pounds of meat. This situation is like when a big guy kills a monster and drops equipment, but the weak ones dare not go up to grab it because they don't know when the big guy will come back. Zeris hesitated for a moment, weighing the pros and cons, and decided to go look for the spider ape and the body of the stone monitor lizard first. It would not be too late to come back and get such trophies after he had finished his business. After all, one is a living thing and can escape, and the other is a dead thing and stays where it is. In a short period of time, no creature should be so blind as to steal its spoils. What's more, the value of the spider ape is currently far greater than this corpse. Zeris flapped his wings and chased in the direction where the spider-like ape had retreated in his memory. Not long after the red dragon flew away, as luck would have it, a goblin emerged from the bushes. When the goblin saw the corpse of the stone monitor lizard, he was stunned at first, looking extremely surprised, and then his eyes suddenly shone brightly. On the other side of the forest, where the trees are sparser, the spider ape looked solemn, and for a moment he couldn't think of what to do next. Move to another place? But the overlords of other regions will definitely not allow the existence of a second competitor. How can they allow others to sleep beside their bed? Stay here? That's even more impossible. The existence of the red dragon is a huge threat. I have to move. For a moment, the spider ape understood the difficulties of the stone monitor lizard at that time. It was all for survival. The news that the red dragon appeared in this area has spread throughout the entire tribe of spider apes, and the spider apes have no intention of concealing it. All the tribesmen looked at the powerful leader with worried expressions, waiting for his orders. The expectant gazes focused on the spider ape, adding to his pressure. The tribe's cubs snuggled in their mother's arms with fear on their faces. At this age, they already knew what a red dragon was. The male spider apes act as warriors. They have firm eyes, hold their heads high and chests puffed out, as if at the command, they would sacrifice their lives for the tribe. The spider ape looked at these tribesmen. This was the tribe he had developed with great difficulty, and it must not fall down like this. He felt heavy, sighed, and was unwilling. He single-handedly led the tribe from poverty and weakness to its current state of gradual improvement. After so many years of accumulation and development, everyone had clearly seen hope, but in the end, it was all ruined because of a red dragon that appeared out of nowhere. Although he knew that the red dragon in front of him was just a baby dragon. But he didn't dare to slay the dragon. He didn't have the courage, nor the ambition. The terrifying dragon breath alone was enough to scare him away. Moreover, if the dragon slaying fails, considering the growth rate of the young red dragon and the revengeful nature of the red dragon, perhaps in a dozen years, not even one person in this tribe will survive. The spider ape lowered his head and smiled self-deprecatingly. He believed that all the tragedies in this world were caused by the lack of ability of the parties involved. After hesitating for a long time, the spider ape seemed to have accepted this fact and spoke calmly, giving the order, "Let's go. Let's go somewhere else. There's no room for us here." After hearing these words, the tribe members' eyes became gloomy and they lowered their heads in silence. In this silent atmosphere, an elderly man from the spider monkey tribe walked slowly towards them, leaning on a cane. He is the only learned man in the tribe. Because they have lived longer and seen more, the priest's knowledge is broader than that of ordinary spider apes. The priest walked up to the spider ape and whispered something into its ear. The spider ape listened to these words, his eyes widened, and he looked very shocked. A light gradually appeared in his originally dark eyes. Spider monkey information, not included in the main text. Spider ape is the leader born from the spider ape tribe. He was born at the most difficult time for the tribe, and he did not have the amazing talent like Corver and Pansy. Just because of his loyalty to the tribe, he fought desperately, fought bloody battles in the forest, and finally stimulated the chi and became a professional. After becoming a professional, he always fought on the front line. In this way, he reached the peak of the initial stage through his own efforts and led the tribe to a better and bright future. So the spider ape's fighting ability is not low, but his knowledge is limited, and he is just like a reckless man. However, at certain critical moments, his intuition is still very reliable. Chapter 27. The dragon's ability to find living creatures is not weak. Its sense of smell, vision, and sensitivity to elements in the air can all help it find the location of its prey. Based on the escape route of the spider ape, Zeris deduced the possible direction. He also thought about turning on the dragon brain computer to feel the effect, but immediately dismissed the idea. Just by watching the spider ape leader and the stone monitor lizard fighting back and forth from a distance, Zeris deduced the leader's strength. The leader of the spider apes is likely to be a low-level peak character, so he must ensure that he has enough mental strength to deal with that leader. Zeris' current strength is actually only at the low-level peak, the same as that leader. But the dragon's powerful body, hard scales, and terrifying dragon breath combined together gave him a powerful strength far beyond his peers. The difference is like a beginner warrior wearing garbage equipment against a beginner warrior wearing full of godly equipment. Although they are both beginners, it is obvious who will win and who will lose. Even so, Zeris didn't want to take it lightly. It was always better to be cautious. In his previous life, he fell because he was not careful enough, which led to. Zeris long blushed. His memories ended here. It was really embarrassing. Of course, that death may also be destined. A strange thought popped up in his mind, could there be someone who has bound to the system like me, but died right after binding to the system due to the law of conservation of luck and lifespan? The more Zeris thought about it, the more it seemed possible, but he was no longer the same person he once was, so he should deal with the business at hand first. Focusing his attention on the area below him again, Zeris put himself in the other person's shoes and thought, if he were a spider ape, where would he establish his tribe? With no caves around, the answer was obvious: a slightly clear area in the forest. This kind of place has a wide view, which makes it impossible for sneak attackers to hide, and it is also suitable for living. With this in mind, Zeris fixed his sights on an area with sparse trees and flew towards that direction. Judging from the Spider-Man ape's decisive behavior of running away immediately after seeing him, Zeris had reason to believe that the Spider-Man apes would also quickly escape with their people after returning to their territory. He originally planned to first find the area where the spider apes lived, observe the signs of life, and then track them further. But what he didn't expect was that there was a group of spider-like apes standing upright on the sparsely wooded land. "You didn't run away." Zeris was a little confused, and when he looked more closely, he saw that these half-ape, half-spider creatures were still holding spears tightly in their hands. The spider ape frowned and stared at him intently. It seemed that he had been waiting for a long time, as if the arrival of the red dragon was exactly what they expected. "Do you want to fight me to the death?" Thinking of this, Zeris sneered. "Ha, since when did the spider ape species become as stubborn as the orcs? They haven't run away yet and are still thinking about slaying the dragon. If the strength has not reached the point of being completely crushed, then this spirit of courage to fight is enough to be admired." Of course, Zeris would not admire them. How could you possibly admire them when they are holding a knife and want to kill you? Their spirit is commendable, but the problem is, these spider-like apes are wearing extremely poor equipment, without even any armor. Only the iron spears in their hands are decent enough. Although this spear is made of iron, its workmanship is poor. When attacking the stone giant lizard before, if it weren't for the spider-like ape's natural strength, this spear would have almost failed to break through the defense. With this kind of equipment, you still want to slay the dragon? Who are you looking down on? Zeris is not bragging, even if these enemies wearing trash clothes have reached the level of entry-level professionals, he can kill a bunch of them with just one breath of dragon breath. Although he was contemptuous, Zeris was not arrogant enough to just rush down and give them a breath of dragon's breath. There must be something wrong when things are abnormal. The spider ape dares to wait for him so calmly, which means, there may be a trap or ambush somewhere that he is not paying attention to. The red dragon flapped its wings in the air, hovering in the sky, looking down coldly at the spider-like ape on the ground. The giant dragon's powerful wings created powerful air currents, which blew onto the spider-like ape. The spider ape stared at the red dragon in the air, the wrinkles between his brows deeper than before. The atmosphere turned cold in an instant. Chapter 28. After a brief stalemate, the spider-like ape in front of him slowly knelt down with his head slightly lowered. This action was a sign of submission. The red dragon felt even more doubtful. A delaying tactic. With doubts in his heart, Zeris still refused to approach the group of spider-like apes easily. He turned on the long Neo computer, and the world in front of him changed in an instant. What comes into view is still the original world, but the difference is that all the objects inside are mixed with data symbols. There are tiny data on every part of the spider ape, even the leaves and grass next to it are covered with data. Zeris himself originally couldn't understand these inexplicable data, but now he seemed to be born with the ability to recognize these data and make inferences. Computer. Zeris instantly understood the origin of the name computer. Zeris's eyes swept in the direction of the spider ape. The data were all normal, there was nothing strange, and no data related to traps or ambushes were scanned. Could it be that the Spider-Man ape is truly surrendering? As Zeris hesitated, he felt a slight sense of fatigue. My mental energy is being consumed so quickly. Surprised, Zeris turned off the dragon brain computer. The spider ape didn't set any traps. Could it be that they want to use the empty city strategy? With doubt in his heart, Zeris slowly flew closer, but his caution remained undiminished. The spider ape kneeling on the ground saw the red dragon flying closer and breathed a sigh of relief. At least there was still a chance to communicate. He looked up and shouted, "Dragon! We are willing to surrender." After saying this, Zeris himself almost didn't believe it. It was such a big fuss, and if you didn't know, you would think there was going to be a fight. Perhaps fearing that the red dragon would lose patience and attack directly, the spider monkey immediately spoke again, "I know there is a group of kobolds in the crypts near here. They are all good at mining. There must be gold hidden in the caves. This gold should be presented to you, Your Majesty." Zeris raised his eyebrows. He didn't expect that this barbarian-like spider ape leader would actually flatter. Zeris really likes money. After all, who would have trouble with money? In his previous life, he was assigned to work overtime by the company because of money problems. If he had money, would he tolerate this? What's more, he really enjoyed being flattered, so it was reasonable for him to accept the surrender of the spider ape. But he is not such a superficial dragon. If he beats up the spider apes and then they offer to surrender, Zeris will most likely believe them, because by that time, the tribe will have no way out. But the tribe surrendered so quickly that Zeris had to consider the spider ape's ulterior motives. Looking at the red dragon staring at him, the spider ape felt uneasy and recalled what the elder of the tribe said to him at that time, "Let's surrender, I have a solution. Red dragons are greedy creatures, so you can first hand over the group of ogres who are good at mining. The red dragon will find the kobolds sooner or later, so why don't you use the kobolds' treasure as a token of your surrender now? What's more, the red dragon is still in its infancy and has plenty of time to sleep. Having a shelter around the red dragon will be more conducive to its development. If we cannot bear the cruelty of the red dragon, we can just run away when the tribe is well developed and the red dragon is asleep. It is normal for dragons to sleep for several months. It's a pity that you might have to stay in the dragon's nest alone." The more the spider ape listened, the more he felt that it made sense. He was indeed a highly respected elder in the tribe. By pretending to surrender, it was equivalent to having one more free dragon protector for their tribe, and they no longer had to worry about the invasion of hostile forces. So this wave of surrender was not a loss. In addition, the treasure as a token of surrender can calm the red dragon's anger. Spending money can ward off disasters. What's more, it is other people's money that is being spent to ward off one's own disasters. Although doing so is somewhat unfair to the gnolls, the gnolls have not done anything else except trading with themselves, so they should still protect their own tribe at the critical moment. Selling out others to save himself? The spider ape was not so saintly as to have such self-condemnation on moral conscience. On the contrary, he felt that it was natural to do so. He did not owe them anything. Besides, the kobolds would be discovered by the red dragon sooner or later. If the tribe surrenders to the red dragon, he will be controlled by the red dragon and lose his freedom. But for the sake of the tribe, Spider Ape thinks it is okay to sacrifice himself. Now it all depends on the red dragon. Thinking of this, the Spider Ape even looked at the red dragon with a hint of expectation in his eyes. Zeris also doubted the credibility of the Spider Ape's voluntary surrender. What the Spider Ape said about knowing the location of the kobold's treasure was true. After all, Zeris had already noticed the iron spears in their hands. You have to know that most of the weapons used by his own gnoll team members are still made of stone. There are two possibilities for the Spider Apes to have iron products. Either they have control of an iron mine, or they have traded with other creatures that can mine. But considering that Spider Apes are not good at mining, the iron spear must have been traded with other creatures. As for what kind of creature it is, first of all it cannot be the dwarves, because they simply cannot make such bad equipment, and they would even be ashamed of such bad equipment. So it is very likely that it is the more common dog-headed people. To be honest, if it were an ordinary red dragon, it would be extremely happy to hear the Spider Ape offering its treasure, and would be so arrogant that it would think that it was its own strength and power that conquered this race. Red dragons are not stupid, but they are often overconfident. Zeris, who is also a red dragon, understands this very well. In the dragon's heritage, even the tone of recording knowledge is filled with pride, as if the entire world should submit to one's feet and one is the master of this world. If a newly born dragon is likened to a blank sheet of paper, then usually, the dragon heritage is the only thing that can change this blank sheet of paper. The dragon heritage will transform this blank sheet of paper into the form that it has instilled. Therefore, all the 5-colored dragons in the past dynasties are inseparable from the template of the proud, conceited, greedy, and cruel evil dragon. But Zeris is different. He has a human soul, and other things are already recorded on this piece of paper. The dragon heritage cannot easily change it, nor can it erase what was previously recorded on the paper. So to a certain extent, Zeris does not have the red dragon's shortcoming of being overly conceited. When others are praising themselves, as a young Zeris is able to think about problems at a deeper level. Dog-headed man information, kobolds are usually of lawful neutral, leaning toward evil, alignment. The appearance of a dog-headed man is not actually a dog's head, but more like a lizard's appearance, but because its barking sounds like a dog's barking, it is called a dog-headed man. What are you barking about? These guys are small in size, not much better than goblins, so they all like to use human wave tactics to attack the enemy. Gnolls are natural miners and often live in groups in the mines they dig. Because they can mine, most of the kobolds have iron products. Although they can forge, their forging skills are obviously lacking. Chapter 29. After a brief thought, Zeris discovered the clue in the spider monkey's words. Give me the treasure? This area will belong to me in the future. Rather than giving me the treasure, it's better to say that you are giving me something I can get in the future, and then you give it to me under the name of giving. Zeris stared at the spider ape, his tone calm, without any emotion revealed. You said the kobold's treasure should be given to me. The red dragon's reaction was completely different from what he had expected. A hint of solemnity flashed across the spider ape's face, but he quickly calmed down. He pretended to be calm and responded to the red dragon, yes. Your Majesty. That treasure should be given to you. This sentence made Zeris laugh. There was a strong murderous intent in his eyes and his words were quite threatening. Oh, if I kill you all, the treasure will also belong to me. Instantly, the air seemed to freeze, and the dragon's might poured out without reservation, pressing down on the spider ape. He resisted the dragon's might, and fine cold sweat oozed from his forehead. The development of things was completely beyond his expectations. He vaguely felt that the red dragon in front of him was completely different from what he remembered, but he couldn't find the reason. Originally he was determined to die, but at this moment the spider ape realized that his body was shaking slightly uncontrollably, as if he was afraid of the red dragon's anger. His rock-hard determination could not change the fear deep in his blood. The spider ape still lowered his head and bent his body slightly. He did not fight back because the red dragon had exposed him. He knew that resistance was futile, and if he angered the red dragon, things would only get more troublesome. Zeris was very satisfied with the reaction of this group of spider apes. He glanced around the entire tribe and found that the people below were all male spider apes trembling because of the dragon's might. It seems that the leader of this tribe did not believe that the red dragon would show leniency, so he made sufficient preparations. While shouting about surrender, he secretly transferred all the females and cubs in the tribe. Not putting all your eggs in one basket is also a way to prepare for a rainy day. But none of this matters. Looking at the spider ape leader who lowered his head, Zeris spoke calmly, "Take me to find those kobolds." Upon hearing this, the spider ape's eyes first showed disbelief, and then a light of surprise appeared in his eyes. As if he had found a way out of a desperate situation, the spider ape suppressed his inner joy and said sincerely, "Thank you, Master Zhenlong, for not killing me." Perhaps fearing that the red dragon would suddenly change its mind, the spider ape quickly straightened up, unwilling to waste a second. "Master True Dragon, please follow me." The spider ape led the way, and Zeris followed from a distance. Who knew if the spider ape would lead him to the kobolds? It was always better to be cautious. On the other side, there is an ordinary hill with many trees. Several 1.5-meter tall dog-headed people are wandering around. In the dense grass, there is an inconspicuous cave. The location of this cave building is very low-key, just like a rabbit hiding its nest in the grass. A few wandering gnolls heard the noise coming from not far away and became alert, but when they saw that the one coming was a spider ape, they immediately relaxed. The reason is simple, because the location of the gnoll tribe is in the territory of the spider apes, and the spider apes are quite nice to the gnoll tribe. As a weak race in nature, kobolds are often enslaved by other powerful species, such as gnolls, ogres, and the like. But the spider apes did not enslave them, largely because the spider apes were lawful neutral creatures. The spider apes usually approached the gnolls to trade, and the gnolls thought this was the same case. But then, this group of dog-headed people realized something was wrong. This time only the spider ape came. Where are the other spider apes? Before the doubts were resolved, a red figure slowly appeared in front of the dog-headed man in mid-air. The figure grew from small to large, and was imprinted in the dog-headed man's sight, giving them a deep shock. Red Dragon. The spider ape came in front of the dog-headed people and looked at their shocked expressions calmly. He said silently without any ripples in his heart, "Kobold, don't blame me for selling you out. I also have my own tribe to support." Chapter 30. The spider ape carefully observed the dog-headed man's expression. The expressions of the gnolls are not deceptive, but when the group of skinny gnolls saw the dragon, although they were surprised, an expression appeared on their faces that the spider ape could not understand. Not fear, nor worry. On the contrary, there was a hint of excitement and agitation on his face. The red dragon is about to rob his house, but the kobold is still so happy? He couldn't figure it out, he really couldn't figure it out. The spider ape frowned in confusion. When the group of gnolls saw the dragon, they ran into the cave hidden in the grass, shouting and yelling, without paying any attention to the spider ape's expression. Although the spider ape was a little hesitant, it still turned around and looked at the red dragon flying slowly towards it. The corner of the red dragon's mouth curled up, and he was secretly happy. It is indeed so. Instead of being afraid when seeing the red dragon, the kobold seemed excited. The reason is, kobolds are naturally loyal fans of dragons. There is a legend that describes that the god of the kobolds was originally transformed from a pool of Tiamat's blood, so this weak race has always been proud to think that they have a trace of true dragon blood. Of course, Zeris doesn't know whether this legend is true or not, but it is mentioned in the dragon's legacy from the perspective of the dragon. This group of weak races actually delusionally think they have the blood of a real dragon. From this we can see that with the dragon's proud temperament, it will never admit that such a weak creature has any connection with itself. But the dragon heritage is the common heritage of several generations of dragons, not just one. This means that the dragon heritage is a mixture of different views from several generations of dragons. In fact, another dragon scientist's research records show that kobolds do have a trace of true dragon blood, but that blood is so thin that it is difficult to detect even with high-precision magic detection. But it is precisely because of that tiny trace of dragon blood that the kobold has the possibility of becoming a dragon vein sorcerer. However, the probability of that happening is extremely low. Even in the entire continent, there are only a handful of ogres who can become dragon vein warlocks. Zeris recalled the dragon's heritage, flew over the spider ape, and ordered in an unquestionable tone, "You can leave now." The spider ape did not speak, but just lowered his head in silence and retreated to an inconspicuous corner, because what was going to happen next was the contact between the dog-headed man and the red dragon, which did not have much to do with him. Zeris didn't have to wait long before a group of kobolds emerged from the dungeon. The leading kobold was very tall, much taller than the other shorter kobolds, about 1.8 meters tall, taller than a normal human. The leading ogre stared at the red dragon with sharp eyes, and there was even a hint of fanaticism in his eyes. Even the spider-like ape that he once knew was automatically ignored. The spider ape looked at this strange scene in confusion. The red dragon came to rob the house and steal the property. Why did the ogre leader, Doug, react so strangely? Looking back at the red dragon again, his expression was still calm, without any emotion revealed. Suddenly, Doug seemed to have thought of something. He knelt on the ground abruptly, his voice trembling slightly, with indescribable excitement, and he said with great emotion, "Great true dragon! I have finally waited for you. For so many years, ever since I heard that you came to this forest, I have been thinking about you day and night, wanting to join your army. This longing keeps me awake all night." Zeris curled the corner of his mouth. Why do these lines feel a bit gay? In addition to mining, flattery is one of the must-learn skills for a kobold to be a loyal licker of a dragon. If he flatters well, he can make his dragon master happy, but if he flatters badly, he will be left in the cold. It was obvious that the ogre's flattery skills were simply not up to standard. The kobold said he came to the forest. He was born here and never left the forest. He must be talking about his father, Molten Mountain Flame? The words of the kobold did not surprise Zeris, but shocked the spider ape. My goodness, the kobold was too cowardly, wasn't he? He surrendered to the enemy without any hesitation after just one encounter? Before the spider ape could recover, the kobold leader Doug spoke again, "Great true dragon, you are this forest, oh no. Look at what I said. You are the eternal master of this world. Even the scorching sun cannot compare to the brilliance you emit. Even the moon seems insignificant because of your existence. Great true dragon! Please accept my gift." As these words were spoken, 4 kobolds walked out of the dungeon. They placed a box full of gold coins on the ground as if they were carrying a sedan chair, intending to present it to Zeris. When Zeris heard the kobold say that he was the eternal ruler of this world, he was too embarrassed to listen any further, for the simple reason that he was boasting too much. There are too many clips of kobolds kneeling and licking red dragons recorded in Zeris's dragon heritage. Some kobolds can even say things like beat up Bahamut and trample on the god of justice. I don't know which arrogant red dragon ancestor had the brains to put these collections of dog-licking YY remarks into dragon heritage. So what Doug said at this time was just average to the worldly wise Zeris, but the feeling of watching someone being licked and being licked yourself were completely different. Zeris appeared calm on the surface, but he was actually very excited inside. After all, this was his first time being licked. Although the one who was licking her was a muscular man who was 1.8 meters tall and could dig minerals, who could resist a kobold who owned a mine at home? The spider ape standing aside was dumbfounded. He absolutely could not bring himself to say such words, but the dog-headed man Doug was actually licking his ass so skillfully. He even began to wonder if Doug had secretly rehearsed this dog-licking behavior dozens of times behind his back. The spider ape's surprise was not noticed by others because the gold coins offered by the dog-headed man were more dazzling. Zeris looked at the box full of gold coins and the group of little fans looking at him expectantly, and forced himself to suppress his excitement. He said to Doug calmly, "You should feel lucky, kobold. You now have the opportunity to serve a real dragon. Take it well. Now, tell me your name." Doug's eyes widened, and then a burst of ecstasy appeared on his face, like a devout believer kneeling on the ground and worshipping. "Thank you, Master, for giving me the opportunity to serve you. My Master. My name is Doug. Gnolls are proud to serve true dragons. They can choose not to believe in the Gnoll god, but they cannot not believe in the great true dragon. P.S. In fact, normally, the height of a kobold should be nearly 1 meter, but here I have slightly strengthened the kobold to 1.5 meters. After all, the settings of each work are different. As for the origin of Doug's name, dog equals dog. Chapter 31. The powerful wings flapped slowly, causing the surrounding air to make a whistling sound. Zeris folded his wings and landed on the ground. His huge wings completely blocked out the already sparse sunlight and raised clouds of dust. The dog-headed man and the spider ape both had their eyes empty in the dust, trying to see the figure of the red dragon clearly in the dust. Without waiting for the red dragon to speak, Doug wisely ordered the kobold soldiers to carry the box of gold coins to Zeris. Doug's words were full of passion. Great true dragon. These are the treasures I present to you. I hope you will take a look at them. With just a glance at the treasure chest, Zeris accurately calculated the number of gold coins in it, 125 gold coins. This is also one of the red dragon's innate abilities, the natural ability to identify and find treasures. The red dragon can identify the value of an item and the amount of gold coins at a glance. Even if a gold coin is missing from a mountain of gold, the red dragon will be keenly aware of the huge loss of this gold coin, and then angrily chase after the hateful thief. For most red dragons who value money, a gold coin is indeed a huge loss. Zeris looked at Doug, who was kneeling on the ground devoutly, and nodded to show his permission. He raised the corner of his mouth and took out a few dragon scales. Doug, my name is Zeris. You will receive my gift. Doug was stunned at first, and then he saw the dragon scales in the red dragon's hand. As a descendant of dragon, the kobold naturally knew what the red dragon master meant by taking out the dragon scales, dragon vein transformation. Dragon vein transformation, as the name suggests, is to directly transform the blood of a living thing into dragon veins. However, there is one limitation: dragon vein transformation cannot be used on creatures stronger than itself. Dragon vein transformation can give the transformer new life and fundamentally transform himself. This is the power of dragon blood. This process is not only a dramatic change in the body, but also a deep transformation in the blood. Successful transformation means being able to gain a longer lifespan, higher potential, greater strength, and true dragon blood. And the price is only to pay your loyalty to the dragon. For the kobolds, the thing they have the most is loyalty to the dragons. Doug stared at the scales in the red dragon's hand, feeling nervous, excited, and expectant, a series of complex emotions mixed in his heart, causing his breathing to unconsciously become rapid, and his chest rose and fell noticeably. Dragon vein transformation. These 4 words are just a legend to Doug's Knoll clan, because the clan has been passed down for decades, but none of the Knolls in it have ever received a reward from a real dragon, and he will soon be the first one. Doug's excited expression was imprinted in the spider ape's eyes. The spider ape is not a dragon descendant, nor does it have the vast knowledge reserves of humans. The spider ape's position in the forest is just equivalent to a rude barbarian, so he can't understand why these ordinary scales can make Doug obsessed like a possessed person. Doug's nervousness and excitement were all seen by the red dragon. Zeris nodded slightly, thinking that the ogreal transformed by the dragon vein was not a good ogreal. Then he glanced at the spider ape standing beside him in confusion. Since entering the stage of a young dragon, Zeris has learned the slave magic of dragon vein transformation from the dragon heritage. Under normal circumstances, ordinary young dragons cannot be exposed to this magic, but because they have the characteristic of precocity, they can learn dragon vein transformation in advance. Zeris gave Doug the dragon vein transformation partly as a reward, but also largely for experiments. After all, Zeris had never carried out actual operations, so he had no intention of trying his hand on Pansy and Kofor. The ogre in front of him was just the right experimental subject. The dragon vein transformation begins. According to the dragon's heritage, the long and complex ancient dragon language slowly flew out from Zeris' mouth, and each bite contained the power to mobilize the elements in the air. Several scales in his hand also flew away from the dragon's claws and floated in the air. The scales slowly emitted a crimson light, which became brighter and brighter, while the scales in the center of the light gradually merged into a dazzling ball of light. To Zeris' surprise, although it was his first experiment, the process of dragon vein transformation was much more skillful than he thought. This also indirectly proves the power of dragon heritage. It doesn't give you any unnecessary things, nor does it teach you any theoretical knowledge, it just allows you to learn this magic directly and be able to use it skillfully. A ball of light transformed from dragon scales seeped in from the center of Doug's forehead. Like magma flowing through his blood vessels and tearing his skin cells like thousands of ants biting at them, Doug collapsed to the ground, enduring the intense pain caused by the dragon vein transformation. Chapter 32. Zeris looked at the dog-headed man lying on the ground with his eyes closed and his teeth bared. He could feel the pain that Doug was suffering from the dragon vein transformation through the air. He couldn't help but secretly rejoice. Fortunately, I was born a dragon, so I don't have to suffer this. Although the other kobolds also frowned and stared at Doug, a kind of envy was revealed deeper in their eyes. The torture is not in vain. If you grit your teeth and endure the short-term pain, you will gain eternal power and potential. This is simply a huge profit. Finally, after enduring more than 10 minutes of painful torture, when Doug regained consciousness, he was already sweating profusely, and he climbed up from the ground exhausted. Clenching his fists, Doug could feel a surge of power flowing from his heart to his limbs. His strength had doubled compared to before. Surprised and happy, Doug kowtowed to the red dragon in front of him to express his gratitude. The spider ape was also surprised to find that the ogre Doug, who was originally at the early beginner stage, now exuded a strength close to the late beginner stage. Although his strength was still not as good as his, this speed of improvement was something he had never seen before. The spider ape knew that the dragons had many different kinds of magic, and every magic recorded in the dragon's heritage was extremely powerful. Even the elders of the tribe admitted this themselves. Considering Doug's increased strength, could it be that some secret method was used? The spider monkey was suspicious. After the dragon vein was successfully transformed, a vague connection emerged in Zeris' mind, linking him and Doug together. This is a relationship similar to a slave contract. He can decide Doug's life or death with just a thought. Without paying too much attention to Doug, Zeris turned his head to the spider ape and spoke in a cold voice, as if asking a question, but with an unquestionable tone, "And you?" Doug also turned to look at the spider monkey. Perhaps he realized that the red dragon's tone was not friendly to the spider monkey. Doug didn't want to speak up for the spider monkey, so he had to remain silent. But Spider Ape could tell from Doug's eyes that Doug wanted him to agree. Whatever, what choice did he have? The spider monkey gritted his teeth and agreed. The second dragon vein transformation begins. After experiencing the same painful torture as Doug, the barrier of the spider ape's initial peak was also broken by the dragon vein transformation, and it successfully entered the early intermediate stage. It officially became a follower of the red dragon. After the dragon vein was successfully transformed, the spider ape understood why the dog-headed man Doug was so excited. After the dragon veins of ordinary creatures are successfully transformed, they will be able to get a glimpse of a small part of the inherited knowledge of true dragons. For example, after the spider ape successfully transformed into a dragon vein, he searched for the benefits and limitations of the dragon vein transformation from a pile of memories that appeared out of thin air. It is equivalent to another form of slave contract, not the secret technique he mentioned. This also means that the red dragon has successfully accepted himself. The spider ape looked at the red dragon, hesitated for a moment, and then asked, "Great true dragon, my people. Don't worry, I will take good care of your people." Zeris glanced around again and said calmly, "Know your position. You two are my people now. You will naturally receive my orders later." Leaving a word, Zeris picked up the box of gold coins contained by the kobold with one dragon claw, took off into the air and flew away. Sensing the red dragon's breath getting farther and farther away, Doug and the spider ape both breathed a sigh of relief. Although the young dragon's might had not yet taken shape, it was still quite oppressive. After Zeris left, he said silently, "It's so uncomfortable to be a boss and have to act cool in front of my younger brothers. This doesn't suit my silly style." Changing the subject, Zeris picked up the treasure chest in the dragon claw and checked it while flying in the air. "First, let me see the gold coins that everyone loves in this treasure chest. This is what many red dragons dream of." Chapter 33. After the red dragon flew away, the spider monkey stood there confused and at a loss. Doug walked towards the spider monkey with an excited look on his face. "Spider ape, how did you know the master? Oh my god! This is too amazing! Why didn't you tell me earlier?" The spider ape smiled bitterly. "Powerful? I would rather not know it. By the way, I want to ask you, do you know the red dragon?" "I don't know him." "Then why did you surrender so quickly?" "Because I was born to believe in real dragons. Is that a problem?" "In other words, no matter what kind of dragon comes, you will kneel down and surrender." "Yeah, brother, what are you thinking about? I'm a kobold, why shouldn't I surrender?" "I see." The spider ape was silent. It turned out that the dog-headed people were born to believe in real dragons. The spider monkey gained new knowledge, but he didn't seem very happy. He felt like he was the clown. No wonder the red dragon looked at him strangely. Doug obviously hadn't recovered from his excitement yet, and he gleefully patted the back of the spider ape, who was a head taller than him. "From now on, we are of equal status and serve the same master together." Without paying attention to Doug's overflowing excitement, the spider monkey asked, "So what should we do next?" "Of course, just do your own thing." "What about the red dragon?" "When the master needs us, he will naturally contact us through the mind link. Don't worry." On the other side, Zeris carefully looked at the gold coin in the dragon's claw in the air. He casually threw the gold coin into his mouth and started chewing it. The texture of the gold coins was slightly soft, which was within Zeris's expectations. The dragon's powerful mouth muscles made it easy for it to chew animal bones, and it could even eat pebbles as candy beans. After chewing the gold coins, to be honest, from a dragon's perspective, the gold coins are quite delicious, and taste like pectin candy. Swallowing gold coins is also beneficial for dragons, because the dragon's stomach is like a super furnace. Swallowing inorganic matter such as stones and soil can accelerate the growth of dragon scales. There are even similar records in the dragon heritage. But even if the dragon's heritage records it as such, most dragons would not choose to swallow inorganic matter. The reason is simple, it's just the dragon's pride at work, and of course, it's also the bad taste and smell of the soil when it enters the mouth. In fact, most red dragons think like this: how can a noble dragon eat dirt? Not even dogs would eat that kind of stuff. Even if I die and fall from a great height, I will never eat a single morsel of dirt on the ground. Even if Tiamat comes, don't think of making me eat dirt. The ancestors of the red dragons recorded in the dragon heritage also believed this. They regarded swallowing inorganic matter as a great shame and humiliation, and sneered at it. If you put yourself in their shoes, dragons eating dirt is probably the same as humans eating feces. Although it can be digested and can satisfy hunger, it is really too shameful to do so. This also explains why dragons don't eat dirt. Zeris is not Lao Ba, and he is not interested in little hamburgers. Besides, he can eat metal as a substitute, so he lets it go by eating dirt. Of course, eating inorganic matter does not make dragon scales harder, but accelerates the growth of dragon scales, so for dragons, it doesn't matter whether they eat it or not. Zeris only ate a few gold coins and then stopped. After all, the money was not much and he was reluctant to spend it. He came to the place where he first encountered the fight between the spider ape and the stone monitor lizard in his memory. The messy scene on the ground remained unchanged, but the bloodstains had long since dried up, and the body of the stone monitor lizard that was originally lying on the ground had disappeared. Shit! Where's my loot? I was careless and my house was robbed. Cursing silently, Zeris folded his wings and descended at a very fast speed. Bang! There was a dull thud of a heavy object falling to the ground. The sound echoed in the woods, startling a flock of birds not far away. Someone actually dared to covet my spoils? Are you tired of living? Zeris really didn't expect that there would be a creature that dared to move the body of the stone giant lizard. If he hadn't had enough time to move the body, he wouldn't have let this shameful thief succeed. Even though he was angry, he didn't waste too much time venting his anger because it was completely useless. Zeris calmed down, carefully observed the traces at the scene, and analyzed silently, "You dare to steal my spoils? Are you desperate? Or are you too conceited? You'd better not let me catch you, thief, or I will give you a dragon's breath in your face and scatter your ashes." Chapter 34. After carefully observing the traces at the scene, he found that this thief made Zeris both angry and speechless. There were obvious large marks of dragging and blood at the scene, and these marks were not covered up at all, but were openly displayed in front of Zeris. Was the thief too stupid to think about counter-detection? Or was he too arrogant to even think about the red dragon finding him? But no matter what, the thief certainly didn't have the strength to lift the stone monitor lizard directly, so he could only drag the corpse with difficulty. There is no need to even turn on the dragon brain computer for a systematic analysis. Zeris can track the thief based on the traces on the ground alone. Another area of the forest at this time, a group of goblins surrounded the corpse of a stone monitor lizard. From their struggling expressions, it can be seen that dragging the corpse is too difficult for these goblins. Time passed little by little, the sky gradually darkened, and the entire northern forest became silent as night fell, with only the rustling of crickets in the ears. Various nocturnal predators start to take action at night, and the forest is more dangerous at night. But hard work pays off, and with the goblins' unremitting efforts, they finally moved the 4-meter-long huge corpse to the destination before total dark. The orc patrolmen around the territory held torches and saw many of their goblin slaves gathered together from afar. Confusion lingered in their hearts, so they shouted at the goblins, "You lowly goblins! What are you doing?" One of the goblins looked like the leader of the goblins. When he saw the orc patrolman, he ran over excitedly without even having time to rest and catch his breath. The goblin looked excited and out of breath. "Big, sir. Food." The food that the goblins picked up. Huge amounts of food, Food? The orc patrolman became more and more puzzled as he listened. He walked forward to take a look and was immediately shocked. In the center of the goblin circle, a huge stone monitor was lying on the ground, apparently dead. This stone monitor lizard died in a miserable manner, with large sections of its body sunken. It was obvious that it was directly crushed to death by some huge force. The goblins jumped for joy beside the orc patrollers, thinking they had done a great thing, and their faces were filled with looks of anticipation for the orc's praise. Although he was surprised, the orc patrolman could not smile. He glared at the goblins fiercely and ignored them. He ran back with a serious face to report the situation to the warrior leader of the orc tribe. What? Those goblins brought back a dead body of a giant stone lizard. Upon hearing the news, the orc leader, Thor, showed surprise on his face, and it was obvious that he did not believe this outrageous event. The orc patrolman's face didn't look very good either. That's right, Chief. I heard that he picked it up. Found it? Take me to see it. Without wasting too much time, under the guidance of the orc patrolman, Solar arrived at his destination. In addition to a group of excited goblins, Thor also saw the corpse of a stone monitor lizard. The leading goblin saw the orc leader and ran over excitedly. He stared at Solar expectantly and cheered beside him, "Goblin do good things. Goblin do great things." Without responding to the goblin, Solar's face sullenly turned red. The hard scales on the stone monitors can be made into armor, and the meat of extraordinary animals is also very beneficial to the body. In addition, the heart of the stone monitor is compatible with the earth element, and it can be plucked and made into precious magic items. Even if the orcs do not have such craftsmanship, they can make a lot of money by selling the corpses to humans. All in all, the corpse of the stone giant lizard is indeed a good thing for the orcs, but at this time the orc leader Thor's face looked as ugly as if he had eaten shit. Because he knew that he was not worthy of enjoying such spoils. Just by taking a look at the horrific wounds on the stone monitor lizard's body, Solar could guess how powerful the hunter was. Stone monitor lizards are extraordinary beasts famous for their defensive abilities. Even if his tribe could defeat a stone monitor lizard, they would definitely not be able to kill it. Perhaps feeling the solemn atmosphere, the cheering goblins slowly fell silent. Solar pointed at the body of the stone monitor lizard and said solemnly, "Where did you find this?" The goblin pointed in the direction of the east of the forest. As the small leader of an area in the forest, Solar knew exactly which direction was going. It was the tribe of his neighbors, the spider apes. Because the spider apes are not very aggressive, and both sides are interested in accumulating their own strength, he and the spider apes tribe have been getting along pretty well in recent years, at least it has not reached the point of life and death. But he also understood that the death of the stone monitor lizard was definitely not the work of the spider apes. The half-ape, half-spider guys most often used weapons such as spears. How could they cause such serious injuries to the stone monitor lizard? Looking at the goblin beside him and then at the tragic corpse of the stone monitor lizard, Thor felt an unknown fire burning in his heart. To be honest, Thor thought that he treated goblin slaves much better than other creatures. At least he didn't eat them alive. But he never imagined that one day he would be stabbed in the back by those damned traitors, the goblins. Although he was angry, killing the goblin now would not help to vent his anger. Instead, it would waste precious time to make amends. What to do now? Solar was thinking quickly, but before he could come up with a solution, a powerful pressure suddenly descended upon him. The goblin was caught off guard and was frightened to the ground. Feeling himself being locked into murderous eyes in the darkness, Solar looked around in horror, but could not see any other creatures. But he knew that the stone monitor lizard hunter had already locked onto him in the dark. Coming so quickly. Chapter 35. A fatal sense of crisis instantly surged through my body. Without having time to think about who the ambusher was, Solar reacted quickly, swung the torch in his hand, and the flame went out. The orc leader started running, unleashing all his initial stage peak strength, and ran 100 meters in just 4 or 5 seconds. In the blink of an eye, Thor's figure disappeared into the dark woods, leaving only the goblin lying on the ground and shivering. Most wild animals in the forest are naturally afraid of fire, but when facing more powerful predators, a torch raised in the middle of the night is a sign of death, making oneself more easily discovered. The beast that could kill the stone monitor lizard must be extraordinary, so Solar made a quick decision, extinguished the torch and used all his strength to escape. Zeris, who was lurking in the dark, couldn't help but find it a little funny when he saw this scene. If the orcs encountered an ordinary wild beast, this operation would be effective, but unfortunately, Thora encountered a dragon. Dragons are born with dark vision, which means that no matter whether the torches are extinguished or not, prey in the dark is extremely obvious to the dragon's eyes, just like in the daytime. How could I let you get away? Zeris leaps out from the darkness, flapping his dragon wings to give chase. The goblins and orc patrolmen along the way were blown away by the howling wind brought by the dragon wings. As the orc Thora ran wildly, the throbbing and fear in his heart did not ease as the distance got farther, but instead tended to intensify. I felt like a prey fleeing in a hurry in the middle of the night, being targeted by my natural enemy, with nowhere to hide. Then, a whistling sound of wind came from behind with great force, and the sound of the wind became stronger and stronger. No, that's not right, the sound of the wind was getting closer and closer. The sound of the wind was coming, like the death locking the soul, and the oppressive feeling of life and death surged into his nerves. Solar was furious and didn't dare to turn his head. Unfortunately, his running speed did not increase because of his tenacious will to survive. He had reached his limit. A huge force hit Solar on the back, causing him to spit blood. The force from the back did not disappear, but pushed Solar forward and pressed him to the ground, plowing a several-meter-long ditch in the land. The whole process took only a moment. When Solar reacted, he could no longer see anything in front of him. He felt severe pain in his body and could feel that all the bones in his body were almost broken. In the severe pain, Solar could feel the force pressing on him disappear, and at the same time a teasing voice sounded, "Hey, look who I caught!" Wow, it turned out to be a nasty thief. Let me see what this thief looks like. A big hand turned Solar's limp body over, and the teasing voice sounded again, "The answer is revealed." It turned out to be a little orc. The orc did not die, on the one hand because the red dragon showed mercy, and on the other hand because of his strong physique as a warrior at the peak of the initial stage. Solar's pupils refocused, and the blurry world gradually became clear in his eyes. In his sight, a terrifying red dragon face appeared in his field of vision. Red scales like fire. Exploding muscles full of violent beauty. Long and strong dragon neck. Mighty and domineering dragon head. And the dragon horns on the head like a crown. At this moment, the red dragon was holding a box in one hand and supporting himself on the ground beside him with the other hand, staring at him with a bad look. The moment he saw the red dragon, Solar's eyes widened and his face was full of disbelief. Anyone who can become a small overlord or a tribal leader must have a high IQ. Solar himself realized that the red dragon in front of him did not want to kill him. Even the stone monitor's strong defense could not withstand it. If the red dragon really wanted to kill him, his body would have been a pool of minced meat by now. But despair still surged in his heart. After all, he had fallen into the hands of the red dragon. According to the red dragon's temper, he was already a dead man. It was just a matter of dying early or late. Chapter 36. The red dragon looked at Thor coldly, with a hint of mockery in his eyes. "Tell me, little orc, why did you steal my spoils?" Solar coughed, feeling bitter inside, but he did not show weakness, and defended himself with the toughness that was unique to the orcs. Orcs wouldn't do such a dirty thing as stealing. Ahem. It was the goblins who stole it. The red dragon looked at the orc in front of him with interest. As for the fact that orcs would not steal, Zeris would not believe such nonsense. Every species will have special individuals that are different from the rest of the group. Even the five-colored dragon clan, which is known for its evil, brutality, greed and pride, will occasionally have a chaotic and kind freak. What's more, the orcs, whose population base is tens or even hundreds of thousands times larger than that of the five-colored dragons. Orcs don't steal, that's just not the case with most orcs. But to be fair, although Zeris was not sure whether the orcs would steal, he was sure that the orcs would not be so stupid and overestimate their abilities as to steal such things. Imagine if a goblin saw the corpse of a stone monitor lizard, it would drag it back to its nest regardless of the consequences. This possibility might not be low, after all, it is a goblin from the Chaos Camp. But no matter who stole it, as long as he didn't see it, Zeris would insist that it was the orcs who stole it. Anyway, his fists were bigger, so he was right. As for those goblins, after seeing the giant dragon, they had already fled in all directions like frightened birds and beasts. Zeris looked around and lowered his head, pretending to be puzzled. "Goblin? I don't see any goblins. I only see you. It's really a goblin. A dragon. I won't lie to you. We orcs don't bother to deceive." Zeris had a nonchalant expression on his face. Even if it was really stolen by a goblin, then that goblin is also your subordinate, right? You didn't teach your subordinates well, so shouldn't you, as their master, take the blame? Solar opened his mouth, but was unable to argue. Originally, orcs are a straightforward species who will fight if they are not convinced. They never talk too much and will never talk too much if they can take action. Having never experienced a verbal battle before, and since the red dragon was in the right, Solar was really speechless. At this time, a rustling sound was heard in the dim woods, and many orc soldiers walked out from the surroundings of the red dragon one after another. They half crouched with weapons in hand, staring at the red dragon with nervous eyes. Obviously, Solar's support arrived, but Zeris didn't take the group of orc soldiers surrounding him seriously. He looked down at Solar. Your little soldier is so loyal that he will stay with you even if he dies. It can be seen that Thor's face was not looking good at this time. On the one hand, it was because he was seriously injured, and on the other hand, his group of orc warriors could not be the opponent of the red dragon. But to everyone's surprise, a shaman walked out from the dark forest surrounded by orc warriors. Even Solar was surprised when he found out. This is the old shaman of the orc tribe. He has an aged face and a hunched body. He holds a shiny wooden staff in his hand and moves forward tremblingly step by step. The old shaman stopped not too far from the red dragon. There was a vine growing out of the top of the wooden staff in the old shaman's hand, and the vine was entwined around a stone of medium size. Perhaps to ordinary people, this is just an ordinary wooden staff with stones wrapped around the top, but as a dragon, Zeris can clearly sense the unusually active earth element next to the stones. With just one glance, Zeris came to the conclusion, the staff in the old shaman's hand was no ordinary object. The orc shaman stood still, and a voice like grinding stone against his throat rang out, Mr. Red Dragon, why don't we talk it out? We are willing to give you compensation. After he finished speaking, in the dark night, the stone on top of the staff began to glow with a faint yellow light. Zeris stared at the shaman closely. Although he could not feel the shaman's specific strength, it was obvious from the look of things that if the red dragon dared to say no, the old shaman would immediately launch a magic attack. Orcs will try their best to avoid fights with heavy casualties, but this does not mean that orcs are cowardly. This is the conclusion he came to from the perspective of an observer of the dragon heritage. Zeris had already witnessed the power of many magics in the dragon heritage, so he naturally knew the power of the spellcaster. Strictly speaking, shaman is also a kind of spellcaster. To be a shaman, it mainly depends on talent. The higher the affinity to the elements, the higher the talent. The probability of a shaman appearing in a tribe is extremely low, just like the probability of a wizard appearing in a human town. Since ancient times, spellcasters have been an extremely difficult profession to deal with. As long as the caster keeps his distance, he will have countless means of attacking the enemy, such as burning meteorites falling from the sky, freezing ice, and whistling wind blades that cut through everything. When facing the shaman, Zeris naturally had to be careful. He was not a stupid dragon who could only charge recklessly. Why would he offend an old shaman and fight to the death with the orc tribe? Of course there was no need for that. Since the other party gave a step, Zeris didn't mind walking down the step. So how do you want to talk? Chapter 37. Hearing the red dragon's words, the shaman breathed a sigh of relief. The red dragon in front of him actually had the temper to talk to him? This was really lucky. But the old shaman still did not let down his guard. The staff in his hand still emitted a faint yellow light, which was the best proof. Zeris didn't care too much about the old shaman's actions, because he didn't trust the orcs. After all, no one could be sure whether the other party would suddenly attack. The orc shaman's face did not turn red, and his heart did not beat. He pointed at Solar who was lying on the ground, and his hoarse voice rang out again, we are willing to pay to redeem him. Upon hearing this, Zeris became interested, as he could make some money again. He was confident that as long as he wanted to run, the orc shaman and a few small fry in front of him would definitely not be able to stop him. After all, if the shaman's strength far exceeded that of the red dragon, he would not be standing here to negotiate with him. The red dragon pointed at the collapsed Solar and chuckled, how many gold coins do you think this warrior's life is worth? The shaman pondered for a moment and held up a finger. 100. Oh my god, are you buying cabbage? I won't sell it for 100 gold coins, at least 200. 200 is too much. 120. No. This is a warrior at the peak of the beginner level. He can be considered the backbone of your orc tribe, right? 200 must be a sure thing. Greedy dragon, you are robbing. You actually called me a dragon. I'm just a child. My young heart has been hurt 10,000 times. I've decided. I want to raise the price. 250. No, 260. Didn't you just say 200? The orc shaman's expression did not look good. This greedy red dragon was actually raising the price. Zeris covered his chest with his hands, revealing a look of deep pain. You just insulted me, and the hurt I felt was no less than that orc brother lying on the ground. So I deserve this psychological compensation. Solar? The orc shaman had a gloomy face. His highest psychological expectation was 200 gold coins. But if you say 200 right away, the red dragon will definitely bargain. It would be better to start discussing the price from 100. While gaining benefits for yourself, the red dragon will feel that he has gotten a great bargain. Unexpectedly, this red dragon did not play by the rules and even abandoned its self-esteem, saying that its young heart was hurt, causing the price to go up as it pleased. The old shaman looked unhappy and said solemnly, 200 at most, no more. The red dragon also changed his previous playful expression and said seriously, at least 260, not even one gold coin less. Your Excellency means that we can't reach an agreement. The shaman's words were quite threatening, and the yellow light on the top of the staff became brighter and brighter. It seemed that he would launch a magic attack in the next second. Although the red dragon doesn't want to cause any more trouble, he is not a coward. There is nothing that can be negotiated. You just didn't show enough sincerity. Zeris spoke in a cold tone and opened his mouth slightly. A violent and hot breath of fire element swirled and gathered in the dragon's mouth, as if it would explode in the next second. At the same time, Longwei was released without reservation, and a sense of oppression instantly descended. The two sides confronted each other. Perhaps the shaman realized that threats were useless to the red dragon. After a moment of confrontation, he gritted his teeth and said, "Deal." The orc and the red dragon exchanged money for the goods. At first the shaman was worried that the red dragon was cheating. After all, that was the usual style of evil dragons. But to his surprise, the transaction was successfully completed and the seriously injured Thora was carried back by the orc warriors. But the face-to-face conflict between the two sides began only after the transaction was completed. Zeris looked at the box in his hand, which had become heavier. In addition to the gold coins donated by the kobolds, there was also the ransom of the orcs. Carrying the heavy box, joy filled Zeris' heart, but he did not leave. The shaman felt a sinking feeling when he saw that the red dragon had no intention of leaving after getting the money. In fact, Zeris had no intention of letting any orc in this tribe escape from the beginning. If the news that there is a baby red dragon in the northern forest spreads to the outside world, who knows how many adventurers who dream of capturing the baby dragon will set foot in the northern forest. Zeris would not do such a stupid thing as letting the orcs escape and putting his own life at risk. The red dragon stared at the orc shaman. Orcs, unfortunately I still don't trust you. How about this? I'll give you two choices. Without paying attention to the old shaman's ugly expression, Zeris paused and continued, submit, or die. Chapter 38. You. Faced with the sudden attack of the red dragon, the orc shaman tightly grasped the wooden staff, and his fingers, which were shaped like dead branches, were clenched white at the base. Perhaps because he was dissatisfied with the red dragon's arrogance and unreasonable behavior, the old shaman started to curse, "Evil dragon! Orcs will never be slaves." The orc shaman got the expected response, and flames surged from the throat of Zeris, "Then go to hell." The dragon's breath, carrying extremely high heat, blasted towards the shaman. The old shaman's caution was not wrong, he had already made precautionary preparations. The staff in his hand burst into an even brighter yellow light, and a magic was instantly cast out after advanced preparation. Earth Elemental Magic, Stone Wall. A huge 4x4 meter stone wall suddenly emerged from the ground, blocking the rolling dragon flames head-on. The orc warriors surrounding the red dragon also rushed forward at this moment. The red dragon stopped breathing and was not in a hurry to deal with the troublesome orc shaman. After all, there was a stone wall separating them, so he decided to get rid of the group of orc warriors beside him first. But at this time, part of the stone wall suddenly shattered and turned into rows of densely packed stone spikes. Each stone spike was large enough to make a big hole in the stomach of an ordinary person. Earth Elemental Magic, Stone Spike Shooting. There was a strong earth element lingering on the stone thorn, and Zeriston felt something was wrong. Without any hesitation, the dragon brain computer was instantly turned on, and a series of system data appeared in his eyes. I saw sharp and dense stone spikes shooting towards me in different directions with extremely high acceleration, just like bullets scattered from a shotgun. But what is different from bullets is that through the data, Zeris can vaguely see that these stone spikes actually have a tendency to turn. The old shaman can artificially control the direction of the stone thorns. While Zeris was shocked, the dragon brain computer was not idle either. In just a moment, data analysis found the perfect way to dodge this attack. The red dragon dodged quickly to the right front, knocking an unlucky orc warrior aside. Sure enough, as the red dragon moved to the right, the stone thorn also moved to the right under the control of the old orc shaman, but the extremely fast speed of the stone thorn meant that it could not turn more sensitively. The red dragon narrowly avoided the stone thorn attack. If he had simply dodged to the left or right, he might have turned into a dragon hedgehog by now. There was a hissing sound behind him, which was undoubtedly the damage caused by the stone spikes hitting the tree. Zeris did not dare to delay for a minute and took advantage of the idle period when the old shaman had just finished controlling the stone spikes. He took a deep breath, approached the shaman again, and surging dragon flames roared out. Surprise flashed in the old shaman's eyes, as if he didn't believe that the red dragon could dodge this attack. But facing the dragon flame, Zeris didn't feel any fear in the shaman's eyes. Why? Is it because we have lived too long that we no longer care about life and death? Before he had time to think carefully about why, reality soon gave the red dragon the answer. At the moment when the dragon's breath was about to hit his face, a ring on the old shaman's finger flashed with magical light. The next second, the orc shaman appeared behind him, and the red dragon's breath hit nothing. Zeris's eyes were filled with solemnity, and he cursed inwardly, automatically triggered life-saving equipment. Blink! Damn, how could an ordinary orc tribe have such a thing? Soon, the shaman in the distance raised his staff, and the yellow light appeared again in the darkness, and the next magic was about to begin. Earth Elemental Magic, Quicksand Storm. A huge yellow gust of wind carrying dense quicksand rushed towards the red dragon. According to the data from the dragon brain computer, this magic could not be avoided. Fortunately, through data analysis, the damage of this magic is not that high. The quicksand scraped against the red dragon's scales, making a rustling sound, and Zeris felt that his speed had dropped significantly. In an instant, his mind reacted and realized that this magic originated from the stone monitor lizard's quicksand breath. It must be said that the old shaman reacted quickly. Although he was surprised that one of his magic spells was dodged, he realized that the red dragon was extremely evasive. Having failed in the first confrontation, the old shaman now planned to slow down the red dragon before attacking. Zeris cursed in his heart, this is the spellcaster, as long as you can't get close to him, he has 10,000 magical means to deal with you. It's really disgusting. Zeris looked back and saw that several huge trees behind him were deeply pierced with the stone spikes he had dodged. With such power, he didn't want the shaman to hit him a second time. Even though the speed slowed down, there was no problem in taking off. Zeris made a prompt decision and flapped his dragon wings to slowly rise into the air. He could already tell that the orc shaman in front of him mainly knew earth element magic. Most earth element magic is steady and heavy. As long as the distance is far enough, one can ensure safety. Seeing the red dragon rising into the sky, the old shaman cursed inwardly. The reason why he didn't want to conflict with the red dragon was that he was not sure whether he could successfully kill it. As far as he knew, red dragons were very brave, and any act of running away would be considered cowardly by the red dragon, unless the dragon really could not defeat the opponent. However, the red dragon in front of him was extremely cautious and chose to avoid the fight after only 2 rounds. The old shaman was really afraid that the red dragon would escape. After all, a true dragon's revenge is never too late, even after 100 years was no joke. At present, my strength has not improved at all. It won't take 100 years, maybe in a few years or even 10 years, for the red dragon to make a comeback. We must not let him escape. The old shaman made up his mind and recited the spell rapidly. The earth elements beside him gathered at the top of the staff. Earth Elemental Magic, Grip of the Earth. On the ground, clumps of dust slowly condensed and gradually transformed into a floating giant stone hand, trying to catch the escaping red dragon. Seeing this scene, Zeris's mind was shocked. Judging from the data of the giant hand and his own slowed flying speed, he was definitely out of the attack range of this giant hand. But as a super powerful creature at the top of the food chain, a dragon roams across all dimensions of the multiverse. It is not enough to rely solely on strong physical fitness. Zeris was not in a hurry. He recited the long and complicated ancient dragon language, and the long bites echoed in the air. Magic, ancient dragon language, dragon shrinking spell. Under the spell, the red dragon's body shrank rapidly, and it changed its flying direction, eventually shrinking to the size of a cat. As for the box full of gold coins in his hand, Zeris threw it directly at the old shaman without any hesitation. What did he want, freedom or treasure? At this moment, he was very clear. Bang, sizzle. The heavy box fell down, but before it hit the shaman, it was blocked by the mage shield that was released in advance. The box shattered and the gold coins tinkled and fell to the ground. Zeris did not expect the box to injure the shaman. It was just a means to distract the latter. After all, how could an ordinary falling object from a high altitude hurt a spellcaster? With the precise calculation of the dragon brain computer, the shrunken red dragon just slipped through the gap between the fingers of Earth's grip. The shaman saw this scene and became confused. Judging from the color of its scales, the red dragon in front of us is still in the young dragon stage. A young red dragon should have just begun to unlock the magical talent of dragon heritage, and dragon shrinking is a magic that can only be unlocked in the second stage. Even if the baby dragon in front of him was slightly larger than a normal baby dragon, it shouldn't have learned the dragon reduction technique at this age, right? Chapter 39. The old shaman's surprise was noticed by Zeris, who naturally knew the reason for all this, his own precocious characteristic. Under the shaman's desperate eyes, the red dragon flew higher and higher, out of the attack range of the earth elemental magic. But unexpectedly, the red dragon did not leave, but made a suggestion to the shaman. You see, neither of us can do anything to the other, why don't we just sit down and negotiate? The red dragon did not flee but chose to negotiate. When did the red dragon become so easy to talk to? Somehow, the shaman felt that the red dragon in front of him was completely different from the red dragon he knew. It was more rational and not easily bound by desire. Having such an enemy is undoubtedly the most troublesome thing. The shaman's eyes flickered, but he finally agreed. He realized the red dragon's uniqueness and he didn't want to become enemies with it completely. Then how do we talk? Zeris saw that there was something going on and said, submission or equality or something like that. Can we be equal? Then why did you ask us orcs to surrender just now? The red dragon was not in a hurry and spread his hands nonchalantly. I can't do anything about it. After all, I don't know whether you orcs will leak my information to others, right? The shaman was different from ordinary orcs. Although he was old, his thinking was extremely clear. He heard the deeper meaning in the red dragon's language. He did not want to reveal his whereabouts. We orcs can sign a contract to ensure that your information will not be leaked. As he spoke, he took out a dimensional bag from the bag on his waist and took out a piece of contract paper from it. The moment he saw the dimensional bag, Zeris knew that the old shaman in front of him must be no ordinary person. The production of dimensional bags involves space magic and complex craftsmanship, which means that dimensional bags cannot be mass-produced at all. Those who own dimensional bags are all well-known figures in the world. It is already unreasonable for an ordinary orc tribe in the northern forest to come up with something like a dimensional bag. No wonder shaman can defeat me. But what does it matter if I'm being beaten? As long as you can't kill me, I can outlast you. In order to show his sincerity, Zeris took the first step to swear. I swear in the name of Bahamut, the Platinum Dragon God and Lord of the North Wind, I will not attack during the negotiation with the orcs. Normally, the five-colored dragons swear an oath in the name of the five-colored dragon queen, Tiamat. Hearing the red dragon swear in the name of the Platinum Dragon God, the shaman was confused but more convinced of the specialness of this red dragon. At the same time, hearing the oath, the shaman felt relieved. Swearing an oath in the name of the gods can never be a lie, unless the swearer wishes to receive fatal divine punishment. The shaman also took a vow, I swear in the name of Gruumsh, the god of orcs, that I will never attack during the negotiation with the red dragon. After making an oath, both sides felt relieved. The red dragon landed on the ground and renegotiated with the shaman. The shaman spoke first, I am willing to sign a contract and not reveal all the information about the red dragon, but as a requirement, the red dragon cannot infringe on the orcs. Zeris frowned after hearing this and tapped the ground with his fingers, looking a little unconvinced. Hey, you're just trying to trick me like this? Aren't you an old man with such a wishful thinking? And there's no time limit. You want to make this contract permanent. The old shaman was neither humble nor arrogant, then changed the contract to, the red dragon cannot invade the orcs for the next 50 years, and the orcs cannot leak the red dragon's information. 50 years? What are you thinking? It won't take 50 years. I can uproot your tribe in a few years. This is a world where the strong prey on the weak. My lord, times have changed. After a pause, the red dragon continued, change the contract to, the orcs submit to the red dragon, and no information about the red dragon can be revealed without permission. The old shaman pressed his cane hard against the ground, impossible, evil dragon. You are asking too much. You should know that I am stronger than you. Then why did you let me escape? No matter how strong you are still an old man. It will be the same in a few years. I can outlast you. Both sides argued their case and refused to give in. Suddenly, in the dark forest, there was a rustling sound in the bushes, and several dark shadows appeared. Chapter 40. The black shadow was 2 meters tall, with a burly body and spider-like lower body. If it were somewhere else, the old shaman would still hesitate about what kind of creature the black shadow was, but here, the shaman could tell it at a glance. It was his good neighbor, the spider-like ape. Under the cover of the night, the already dark spider apes were now even more concealed. Holding spears in their hands, they slowly walked out of the twilight and surrounded the orcs. The spider ape walked out from among several spider-shaped ape soldiers, holding 2 half-dead orc soldiers in their hands. The spider ape held a spear in one hand and threw the half-dead orc soldier in front of the shaman with the other hand, without saying a word from beginning to end. The shaman was furious as he looked at the orcs thrown at him. These 2 were messengers he had secretly sent when he was confronting the red dragon. Now that all the messengers have been captured by the spider apes, the message must have not been delivered back to the tribe as he wished. The spider monkey was also a local tyrant in another area of the forest, but how could it just happen to come and take advantage of the situation? In just a moment, the shaman realized that the spider monkey must have become a subordinate of the red dragon. When the shaman looked closely at the spider ape, he could even see the latter's hair turning from black to red due to the transformation of the dragon vein. The spider-like ape had unknowingly become the red dragon's follower, and the shaman felt heavy-hearted. Spider ape, you. The spider ape simply smiled contemptuously without saying a word, still staring at the orc shaman coldly. At this point, how could the shaman not understand what was happening? It's nothing more than that the red dragon also used some means to get the spider ape to bring people here. The shaman turned to look at the red dragon, only to see a hint of pride on the red dragon's face. Zeris knew that he could not defeat the orc shaman, so when confronting the shaman, he secretly contacted the spider ape through the unique effect of dragon vein transformation, mind link. Even the bargaining in the signing of the contract was part of the red dragon's plan, the purpose of which was to delay time. Orc, can we discuss the contract in detail now? The shaman sighed. Although both parties swore in the name of the gods, the oath was only valid during the negotiation period. Although it can be guaranteed that the 2 sides will not attack each other during the negotiations, there is no guarantee that they will not attack each other after the negotiations break down. If there was only one red dragon, the orc shaman would be sure to win, but now the spider ape has suddenly joined in, adding a lot of uncertainty to the battle. The old shaman had no choice but to continue discussing the signing of the contract with the red dragon. With the threat of the spider apes, the old shaman obviously gave in a lot, but still tried his best to fight for the interests of the orcs. Ultimately, the contract ended in a way that satisfied both parties. The red dragon and the old shaman dripped their blood on the contract paper filled with words. The contract paper seemed to be held up by a pair of invisible hands, floating in the air and igniting without fire. Seeing this scene, both parties secretly breathed a sigh of relief, and the content of the contract was firmly imprinted in the minds of Zeris and the old shaman because of the effect of the contract paper. Contract 1, the orcs will serve the red dragon for 50 years. In return, the red dragon must provide the most basic guarantee for the orcs' survival, and the red dragon must not beat, scold, maim, oppress, harm, or embarrass the orcs at will. Contract 2, after the 50-year service period, the orcs can decide whether to stay or leave, and the red dragon must respect the choice of the orc tribe. It is not allowed to change its mind or regret it at the last minute, and use it to harm and suppress the orcs. Contract 3, if the red dragon is not far more powerful than the orc shaman, the red dragon and the orc shaman will have a 6-to-4 ratio of power to manage the orc tribe, and both will be the leaders of the orc tribe. Signed by, Red Dragon. Zereth Elzavan Fred Gerard, Osiris. Signed by, Shaman Gul'dan Stonehard. As for his full name, Red Dragon had nothing to hide. A dragon is different from a devil. If the devil's full name is known to outsiders, the devil will be controlled, but if the dragon's true name is known to outsiders, nothing will happen. After signing the contract, the orc shaman Gul'dan thought he had made a profit. Although the orcs had to serve the red dragon for 50 years, the red dragon could not just kill the orcs at will. If you think about it from another perspective, isn't this the same as spending 50 years under the protection of the red dragon? With the red dragon at their backs, the orcs will only be safer than before. Of course, Zeris didn't feel that he was at a disadvantage. As a soul that traveled from another world, he didn't have the red dragon's bad habit of killing his subordinates at will. With the orc's 50 years of service, he could develop his strength faster and his safety would be further guaranteed. After 50 years, when I am strong enough, I won't be so dependent on the orcs anymore. As for Contract 3, Zeris believed that with his rapidly growing strength, it was only a matter of time before he surpassed Gul'dan. What's more, Gul'dan is a spellcaster, and he can ask him for advice on some of his magical difficulties. And according to preliminary judgment, Gul'dan with the dimensional bag is likely to be far more unfathomable than he thought. In this way, both sides thought they had gained a great advantage. Chapter 41. In this way, the territories of orcs, spider apes and the original stone lizards were integrated together by Zeris. A few days later, the leader of the kobolds, Doug, the real ruler of the orc tribe, Gul'dan, and the leader of the spider ape, gathered together at the same time. The reason why they gathered together was simple. They were all invited to the cave where the red dragon lived in the name of conspiring for something big, but they couldn't find the way, so they were currently standing on the grass waiting to be received by the red dragon's messenger. Gul'dan treated the spider monkey coldly, obviously still dissatisfied with the spider monkey for helping the red dragon that night. But now he was in the same situation, he couldn't blame the spider monkey, so he kept silent. Needless to say, Doug and the spider ape knew each other. The spider ape had been listening to the Knoll man yelling fanatically about the greatness of the dragon, and he wanted to take this opportunity to improve his knowledge and get to know the red dragon better. It's a pity that the kobold Doug had nothing but praise and didn't say a word about the dragon's habits, hobbies, or other useful things. Maybe Doug himself didn't know either, but who cares? He just licked it. It should be possible to give it a nickname, licking dog. As for the goblins, those weak creatures have now been kept in captivity by the orcs to prevent them from running out and causing trouble again. While the three were waiting, in the distance, the figure of a dragon man appeared in the woods. The moment they saw the dragon man, the three knew that the messenger had arrived. Most dragon people have inherited the arrogant temperament of real dragons, so dragon people have always only served two kinds of creatures, one is the dragon person, and the other is the real dragon. The dragon man stepped forward and glanced at the three people casually. I am the messenger sent by His Majesty. Please follow me. Facing three people who were stronger than himself, the dragon man's words were not polite at all, but there was no irony in them either, just like a machine. Doug and Gul'dan looked at each other and didn't say much. The dragon man in front of him directly serves the real dragon. In terms of status, the identities of the four of them are the same, subordinates of the red dragon. According to the habits of the dragon people, this is the normal situation. But it was obvious that the spider ape was not very satisfied with the dragon man's performance, but when he thought of the red dragon, he had to give up no matter how dissatisfied he was. The three followed the dragon man to the outermost part of the spider web maze. The spider webs between the big trees made the sultry forest look a little chilly, and the three of them frowned at the same time. On the one hand, he was surprised at the drastic change in the appearance of this area in the forest, and on the other hand, he was curious about the red dragon's residence. Does the red dragon live in such a ghost place? There is only one situation, and that is the red dragon's territory, not a residential area. Although they couldn't figure out how the red dragon got involved with the spider, the three of them still walked into the spider web maze. The surroundings were covered with spider webs, and roads from different directions were intricately intertwined. The ground was covered with fallen leaves, which made rustling sounds under the feet of people. The deeper they went, the more solemn their expressions became. Along the way, they encountered countless mutated spiders. The mutated spiders seemed to be aware of their arrival. Although they only gathered in the distance and hissed around a few people, their numbers brought a strong sense of oppression. In addition, not a single ray of sunlight could penetrate the cold and dark spider web forest, and in the complex and chaotic spider web maze, everyone's concept of time gradually became blurred. Under the guidance of the dragon man, the three of them walked around in circles for an unknown amount of time. The spider webs in front of them gradually became scarce, and finally there were no spider webs at all, and they came to a lake as clear as a mirror. This is the very center of the spider web maze. On the other side of the lake, the shadows of several dragonmen and 2 stone monitors are particularly conspicuous, and one can vaguely see that the dragonmen are teaching the stone monitors. In addition, there are several teams of jackals patrolling the lake, and there is an inconspicuous cave on the hillside next to the lake. It seemed that they trusted the dragon man enough. The gnoll team patrolling the lake did not ask too many questions when they saw the dragon man coming with a group of strangers. They just looked at them with a puzzled expression. When they approached the cave, 2 dragon guards standing beside the cave stopped the few people, but after the dragon messenger came forward to communicate with them, the 2 guards let them go. Entering the cave, it seems like 2 completely different worlds from the outside world. The cave is extremely quiet and the only sounds you can hear are the footsteps of a few people and the faint sounds of restlessness coming from a distance. As if fearing that the 3 guests might worry too much, the leading dragon envoy explained, "This cave will be guarded by 2 gnolls at regular intervals, so don't worry, the noise is made by the gnolls." Sure enough, after passing by the caves guarded by the jackals, the entire cave gradually became wider. After passing several forks, at the end of the cave, a red dragon was lying on the ground resting, and the entire cave was surrounded by burning torches. The torch was not particularly bright, but one could vaguely see the red dragon's huge body and retracted wings. 2 tall figures stood beside the red dragon. The dragon envoy knelt on one knee, looking sincere. "Your Majesty, I brought them here." One of the figures waved his hand, without a trace of emotion in his words, "Back off." After receiving the order, the dragon envoy retreated. Chapter 42. Pansy glanced at the 3 of them, her tone of disdain undisguised, and she looked at them with an evaluating look. "Are these 3 the new men your Majesty has recruited?" A short dog-headed man, and a spider-like ape of average strength. Even though the kobold was 30 centimeters taller than his peers, reaching a height of 1.8 meters, he still looked short compared to Pansy's 2.5 meters. The spider ape had reached the early intermediate stage due to the transformation of the dragon vein, but its strength was only average for Pansy. "And one more." As she spoke, Pansy's eyes fell on Gul'dan. Although Pansy couldn't see through the orc shaman in front of him, he could feel with his werewolf intuition that the old shaman in front of him was not in good condition. He was an old man with 1 foot in the grave. "The old shaman is dying." Doug and Spider Ape dared not say anything in the face of Pansy's disdain because they saw scars all over the tall body of this werewolf. And the werewolves themselves are also radiating momentum and visual oppression. If facing a red dragon, it is normal to feel oppressed by the dragon's might, but when facing the species of gnolls, the oppression they can feel can only be the purest form of strength suppression. The exaggerated scars on their bodies proved that the gnolls were brave warriors who had experienced life and death battles many times. Even the barbarians in the gnoll tribe could not bring such a sense of oppression. Gul'dan just frowned slightly after hearing Pansy's remarks. Although he was a little angry at the contempt of the werewolf, he was more surprised that the werewolf could see that his time was running out. Therefore, Gul'dan's eyes showed solemnity. Kofor on the side waved his hand to stop Pansy's disgusted behavior. "Pansy, don't be so critical. We are all colleagues who will serve His Majesty together in the future." Although Corver himself felt that the new men His Majesty had recruited were somewhat unreliable, he sensed a familiar aura from the dog-headed men and spider apes, and he should at least respect his new companions. When Pansy heard this, the disgust on her face disappeared. She glanced at Kofor and chuckled, "Kofor. Don't think I don't know what you're thinking. You're definitely thinking the same thing as I am." "Bullshit, how could I be as rude as a jackal like you?" Pansy's eyes widened after hearing this, and her words were full of disdain. "I'm rude? You keep calling me a stupid gnoll, and you, a speciesist dragon man, are polite." Kofor smiled contemptuously. "Oh, am I not more polite than you?" Pansy twisted her wrist. "Come, let me use my fist to show you what politeness is. Come on. Am I afraid of you?" The 2 big bosses under the red dragon were talking, and the red dragon was not awake. The dog-headed man Doug just watched silently and did not dare to interrupt. The spider ape didn't dare to interrupt. He just felt that he had made the right decision at the beginning, to surrender. Fortunately, there was no falling out with the red dragon. There were actually 2 strong men who obeyed the red dragon. "Call." A heavy snorting sound was heard. The red dragon woke up. Kofor and Pansy, who were arguing in the last second, became quiet and well-behaved in the next second. They faced the red dragon and knelt on one knee. "Your Majesty," X2 The attitudes of the two masters changed so quickly. One second they were arguing and threatening to fight, and the next second they were obediently kneeling down to worship the red dragon, leaving those present a little confused. The kobold Doug reacted quickly and knelt down. The spider ape next to him was stunned for a few seconds before kneeling down. Only Gul'dan remained unmoved and still stood there. In the darkness, the dragon's eyes slowly opened. A flame ignited out of nowhere in the darkness, hanging in the palm of the red dragon, reflecting the faces of everyone. The domineering and majestic red dragon head, Doug with fanatical eyes, the astonished spider ape, the resolute and sincere Corfer and Pansy, and the frowning Gul'dan. Looking at the expressions of the crowd, Zeris nodded slightly to show his satisfaction. This was the most basic fire magic that he had spent several days to learn, fire induction. At this moment, he was using it to show off, and the effect was maximized. But what does Gul'dan's expression mean? However, considering that Gul'dan is a spellcaster, it seems that I am indeed showing off my skills in front of an expert. Anyway, Gul'dan's expression was always strange, so Zeris simply ignored it. He believed, as long as I am not embarrassed, Gul'dan will be embarrassed. The art of starting fire is difficult to say, but it is also not difficult to say. The difficulty lies in the fact that magic requires talent, and fire starting technique requires the talent to sense the fire element in the air. The simplicity lies in that as long as you can sense the fire element, you can learn it, just like a student doing the basics of 1 + 1 = 2. It is just a matter of time. The higher the affinity with the fire element, the simpler the fire induction technique will be and the faster you will learn it. Given that Zeris possesses the characteristics of Son of the Great Flame, coupled with the red dragon's own magical sensing abilities and affinity with the element of fire, it is no surprise that he was able to learn fire-inducing technique in just a few days. Of course, Gul'dan himself was not frowning because the red dragon used fire magic. He was just frowning after hearing the words of the Knoll and remembering that he had not much time left. Chapter 43. Zeris looked around and spoke quietly. "Everyone, get up." After receiving the order, everyone stood up straight. After a pause, he continued, "I think everyone knows the purpose of coming here, so I won't say any more nonsense. The first thing is to transform my cave into a bigger and better one, enough to accommodate more people." Zeris stared at the kobolds and said, "Doug, bring some of the kobolds to my place to renovate the cave. Those kobolds can live here in the future. The remaining kobolds will stay where they are and mine and smelt iron." Doug was stunned at first, then he was ecstatic and suddenly knelt on the ground to thank the red dragon. Zeris recalled the inferior iron spear in the spider ape's hand and couldn't help but frowned. The kobold's crappy forging skills were no match for humans at all, but not many people knew how to forge now, so they could only make do with it. Ignoring the excited kobold, Zeris set his sights on the spider ape. He still remembered the weird behavior of the spider ape who offered goodwill for no reason, did not resist at all, and instead led the team to submit. Although the spider ape has been transformed by the dragon vein and will not do anything to harm the red dragon, Zeris is still worried. He stared at the spider ape and said, "The spider apes and orcs hunt together and cooperate with each other. Oh, and I'd like to trouble you to clean up the other creatures near our territory. Is that okay?" Although he was asking, there was still an irresistible feeling in Zeris's tone that was familiar to the spider ape. The spider ape lowered its head slightly and bent its body to show its humility. "Master True Dragon, of course." There was no need to think too long. The spider ape had no hatred towards the orc tribe, and he had already been transformed by the dragon vein, so he did not refuse. After receiving the spider ape's affirmative response, Zeris turned around and looked at Gul'dan. "And you?" When it comes to Gul'dan, Zeris's tone is much better. Gul'dan nodded slightly to show his agreement. After all, the relationship between the orc tribe and the spider apes was not that bad. After a brief division of tasks among everyone, this so-called conspiracy to accomplish something big meeting came to an end. The meeting was over and everyone was about to leave when the red dragon's voice rang out again. "Gul'dan, you stay." Hearing this, Gul'dan, who had just taken a step forward, curled his lips helplessly and stood facing the red dragon. Doug and the spider ape looked back at Gul'dan curiously, but they caught a glimpse of Pansy and Corver staring at them with unfriendly expressions, so they wisely walked away quickly. Gul'dan was not in a particularly good mood. After all, at his age, what good could happen if he was left alone by a red dragon? After spider ape Doug left, Zeris coughed lightly and got straight to the point. Gul'dan, have your orcs keep an eye on the spider apes. Hearing this, Gul'dan's eyes revealed a hint of confusion, but then he thought of something and felt relieved. Isn't the reason why the spider ape submits to the red dragon similar to that of his own orc tribe? However, during the negotiations, the orc tribe later became unbalanced in combat power due to the addition of the spider-like apes, which led to the orcs serving the red dragon for 50 years. At that time, I thought that the spider ape and the red dragon were in the same group, but now it seems that the red dragon still does not trust the spider ape. I'll pass it on. Gul'dan did not refuse. After all, there was a contract between the two of them. Secondly, he was dissatisfied with the spider-like ape helping the red dragon. As if to prevent Gul'dan from thinking too much, Zeris patiently explained, the spider ape surrendered voluntarily. The entire tribe did not sign a contract. In other words, I can only control the spider ape, but not the others. That's why I need the help of the orcs. Gul'dan glanced at Zeris in surprise. In his memory, red dragons were extremely arrogant and would never actively seek help for trivial matters because it was a shame for them. Gul'dan seemed to feel that he had fully understood the character of the red dragon, and commented without reservation, "Your red dragon is really different." Zeris chuckled and said nothing. Although the probability is relatively small, it is normal for a dragon-like abnormality to appear among giant dragons occasionally, right? When he heard about the abnormal dragon body, Gul'dan's smile froze on his face. The first time he learned about the concept of dragon anomaly was when he heard others talk about the story of Molten Mountain Flame. As a spellcaster, Gul'dan's curiosity about dragons prompted him to look up information about dragon anomalies. In fact, every species will always have some strange individuals that deviate from the normal, such as the succubus among the abyss demons who turn from darkness to light, the devils in hell who do good deeds without leaving a name, and the wise and intelligent goblins. There are also individuals among the giant dragons whose behaviors deviate from normal. These dragons are called dragon anomalies. The alignment of draconic anomalies is uncertain, but most are neutral. The manifestations of dragon abnormalities are accepting but not fully accepting the knowledge and behavior instilled by the dragon heritage, the mentality is not affected by the dragon heritage, and having the ability to think independently since childhood or even from birth. Generally speaking, dragon-like anomalies are either strong or weak, and there are only two corresponding consequences: one is to die early in the world, and the other is to become a powerful existence that dominates the multiverse. The red dragon in front of him did give Gul'dan the feeling that it was an abnormal dragon. Zeris didn't care about Gul'dan's reaction, nor did he worry too much, because due to the constraints of the contract, Gul'dan could not reveal the red dragon's privacy at will. By the way, Gul'dan, I remember you have a dimensional bag. The red dragon's words brought his thoughts back to reality, and he temporarily put aside his thoughts on the dragon anomaly. Gul'dan did not deny the existence of the dimensional bag. Indeed, the dimensional bag is with me now. Gul'dan looked directly at the red dragon. You want it? Zeris smiled easily. A spellcaster's dimensional bag, who wouldn't want that? Gul'dan also smiled and expressed his agreement. After all, if ordinary people would covet something, how could the even more greedy red dragon not want it? But, Zeris changed the subject. I don't want the dimensional bag, I just want to hear your story. The red dragon said this, propping up his head with his claws, looking very interested. After all, it's impossible for a small orc tribe to master the method of making dimensional bags, right? Gul'dan discovered that the red dragon in front of him was more intelligent than he had imagined. It had the calmness and thoughtfulness of a wise man, which was rare in a red dragon. He was even more certain that the red dragon in front of him was a rare dragon anomaly. At the same time, Gul'dan's rejection of red dragons gradually faded. After hesitating for a moment, as if recalling his past, Gul'dan sighed deeply. Well, then I'll tell you. Chapter 44. More than 70 years ago, before the Molten Mountain fire came to the northern forest, the kingdom of Laerden was still ruled by Clive's grandfather. Note, the kingdom of Laerden is a kingdom outside the northern forest, because there is more than just a forest in the north. In addition to the northern forest, there is also a plain, and the kingdom of Laerden is built on the plain, close to the forest. A little orc was born in the rock tribe, who was born with a very high affinity for the earth element. The tribe placed high hopes on this little orc and named him Gul'dan the Stonebreaker. To the delight of the old shaman of the tribe, the little orc was naturally chosen to be the inheritor and was carefully taught by the old shaman of the tribe. Little Gul'dan grew up gradually, and in the blink of an eye, More than 20 years had passed. Little Gul'dan has grown into the standard strong image of an orc, and his strength has reached the late initial stage. This growth rate is already abnormal. At this age of 20-something, even human children have hot-blooded personalities, let alone the brave and fearless orcs. At that time, outside adventurers often entered the northern forest. As time went by, the rock tribe outside the forest came to know humans, traded with them, and told humans things that needed to be paid attention to in the northern forest. Looking at the adventurers coming and going from the outside world to explore the northern forest, Gul'dan became even more curious. Once, Gul'dan fought side by side with a team of adventurers and became comrades in arms. The adventurers then began to tell Gul'dan endlessly about the interesting things they had encountered in the outside world. Finally, driven by curiosity, Gul'dan was no longer satisfied with just hearing stories from adventurers. He wanted to go out and see the vast world, so he asked the old shaman of the tribe to become an adventurer. The old shaman pondered for a moment, and finally nodded and agreed. The reason was simple: almost every shaman of the rock tribe had done this. When they were young, they were full of vigor and curiosity, and they went out to explore the world and then came back when they were old. Gul'dan wanted to join the adventurers, and the old shaman nodded in agreement. The fellow adventurers were naturally very happy. As we all know, an adventurer who doesn't take risks cannot be called an adventurer. Due to the dangerous nature of the adventurer's profession, Gul'dan, the most talented young shaman, was given preferential treatment and was allowed to carry a special staff for self-defense. This special staff is the heritage of the rock tribe. Staff. Glory of the rock. There are vines growing on the top of the staff. These vines seem to have consciousness and are wrapped around a seemingly ordinary stone, connecting it to the handle of the staff. Gul'dan came to Pingchuan City, where there were endless streams of people passing by, people coming and going, and traffic was heavy. It was the first time he saw the prosperity of this city and was shocked by it. Soon, this young orc shaman who came to the Adventurers Guild from a remote area attracted people's attention. Gul'dan also formed a team of adventurers based on his own potential and strength. Improving the abilities of a spellcaster requires the accumulation of knowledge and understanding of the world of magic. Gul'dan's travels outside expanded his knowledge, and his actual combat times also increased. He and his team encountered centaurs who were robbing for a living on the vast grassland. Although these half-horse guys had superb fighting skills, Gul'dan used quartal magic to turn the grassland into a quagmire out of thin air, causing the charging centaurs to fall flat on their faces. At the junction of grassland and forest, they encountered savage bugbears and fought with them. Finally, the bugbear was pierced from the crotch to the heart by a stone spike that emerged from the ground by Gul'dan. Once you enter the forest, you may be disturbed by a group of goblins. The goblins rely on their numbers and rush towards the adventurers with a few branches or stones. Of course, Gul'dan's team of adventurers also made the goblins understand what the equipment gap is. After killing a few goblins, a large group of goblins became demoralized and left croaking. From time to time, Gul'dan would bring his team back to the Stonehenge tribe after taking a break from adventuring, and would shoot some prey on the way and roast them for food. The adventurers experienced so many interesting things that the bards could not finish telling them even if they spent days and nights telling them. Soon, a few years later, Gul'dan reached the intermediate level and was able to go to the library in Pingchuan City to expand his knowledge. Gul'dan was generous and magnanimous, but also cautious in battle, but was ultimately frustrated by the orc's straightforward temper. A few more years passed, and Gul'dan had now become a late intermediate level spellcaster. Gul'dan couldn't stand the arrogance of a foreign noble, so he retorted and started a fight, and finally beat the noble's lackey to death. It is not said in vain that one has to look at the owner before beating the dog. The nobles thought they could not bring themselves to do this, so they sent people to plot against Gul'dan. Although Gul'dan is rough but meticulous, he trusts his teammates extremely well because no one has ever told him that humans are much more scheming than orcs, and the knowledge in books does not mention this. It was the teammate he trusted who betrayed his whereabouts. During an expedition to the northern forest, his team of adventurers encountered several warriors who suddenly appeared halfway and rushed towards Gul'dan with a grin. Facing enemies of the same level or even one level lower than himself, Gul'dan is confident that he can defeat them all. After all, mages have a natural suppressive power over other professions. Just as Gul'dan was concentrating on gathering magic to face the enemy, a poisonous dagger flashing with cold light stabbed from behind and stabbed Gul'dan in the waist. This is the kidney shot, which is considered one of the most cunning martial arts. Gul'dan gritted his teeth and endured the severe pain, looking back in disbelief at the teammate who had backstabbed him. you. The teammate quickly jumped out of the attack range and sneered, Captain, blame it on your straightforward temper. I can't do anything about it. He gave you too much. Of course, not all team members are like this. After years of life and death together, some teammates have already regarded Gul'dan as their own brother. Among the other teammates, there was a middle-aged man with a weathered face. He raised his sword and rushed towards the betrayer, angrily saying, Traitor! I don't care about my life anymore, I'm going to kill you first. Let's see if you can live to spend that money. One of the teammates holding a large shield was also a middle-aged man. He knew that his captain was injured, so he stayed by Gul'dan's side and said angrily, I'll protect the captain. There was another younger teammate holding a bow and arrow. He also had a determined look on his face and stood silently beside Gul'dan. At this moment, a faint light flashed from the staff in Gul'dan's hand, but no one noticed it, including Gul'dan himself. Gul'dan endured the severe pain from the wound and the poison, lowered his head and uttered the spell through clenched teeth. Gravel storm. Gusts of wind whistled up, forming a huge oval-shaped area, circling around Gul'dan. Seeing this situation, the enemy realized that they could not delay any longer, so they rushed towards Gul'dan. But in the blink of an eye, sharp gravel condensed in the strong wind and swirled around Gul'dan in the air along with the wind, covering Gul'dan. The enemy was forced back by the gravel storm before they could get close. The rubble spinning at high speed with the strong wind was like a meat grinder. No one wanted to take the risk of forcing their way in. One of the enemies drew his bow and shot an arrow, but the arrow could not break through the layers of tangled gravel. The enemy who was drawing the bow turned his head to look at the person next to him and asked, Boss, what should we do now? What else can we do? Just wait. The orc has been poisoned. I don't believe he can get away. In the center of the gravel storm, several people were enveloped in it, including the betrayed teammate. Gul'dan is an orc, upright and honest, and he despises betrayers the most. He said solemnly, You will pay for your actions. Chapter 45. Enemies outside realize that gravel storm will also engulf those who betrayed Gul'dan. Boss, that person is also inside, what should we do now? If he's in there, just stay in there. What does his life or death have to do with us? We just need to wait for the magic to disappear, and then bring back the heads of the orc and his teammates. The person who betrays does not know that he has become an abandoned person. Seeing himself trapped in the gravel storm and unable to escape, he realized that he was doomed, so he knelt on the ground and kowtowed to beg for mercy, Captain. Please give me a chance to live. I was just greedy for a moment and was blinded by money. I have people at home. Damn it. I'm going to kill you today. Before he could finish his words, his teammate, with sword raised, slashed at him angrily. Driven by the desire to survive, the traitor reacted quickly and barely dodged the sword. Then he found that Gul'dan's expression was still serious, and he had no intention of letting him go. The betrayer yelled, Damn it! Captain! You've been poisoned. Only I have the antidote. If you don't let me go, then you can't live. Hearing this, the teammates who raised their swords hesitated. Sure enough, as soon as the word antidote was heard, the atmosphere became heavy, and the traitors felt more confident facing Gul'dan. He looked at Gul'dan, trying to see through his expression, but Gul'dan was still serious and painful. It was hard to tell what Gul'dan's expression was. The betrayer raised his teeth and even smiled a little, Captain, why don't you just let me go? For the sake of our adventures together for so many years, I'll leave the antidote to you. Upon hearing this, the teammates clenched their fists, their anger evident in their expressions, but no one moved. Gul'dan smiled, with a trace of blood flowing from the corner of his mouth. Hee. Let's not use it. How do I know if it's an antidote or poison? As soon as he finished speaking, in front of the surprised eyes of his teammates, a giant rock hand stretched out from the ground and grabbed the betrayer. The betrayer looked terrified, feeling the increasing pressure coming from his body, and said hurriedly, Captain, Captain! You better think about it. I have the antidote. I know where the antidote is. I don't want to die. If you kill me, you will die too. Gul'dan smiled solemnly and spat out a mouthful of blood, Ahem, why didn't you think you would die when you betrayed me? After he finished speaking, the giant rock hand suddenly exerted force and crushed the betrayer's body and internal organs. The betrayer's eyes, which had been wide open before his death, were squeezed out by the pressure. The giant stone hand sensed that the traitor did not have the antidote on his body, so he threw the corpse from a high place. The corpses flew over the enveloping gust of wind and fell in front of the enemy like rags. The leading enemy glanced at the corpse. Tisk tisk, what a miserable death. After a brief sigh, he casually threw the corpse with its eyeballs sticking out to the side and continued to wait for the gravel storm to stop. Magic also has a duration. Not long after, gravel storm stopped and Gul'dan's condition became worse. After the magic stopped, Gul'dan appeared in front of the enemy, and the enemy leader laughed grimly. The prey has appeared. Go for it. The teammates also surrounded Gul'dan to defend, refusing to give in. The two sides engaged in a melee, but how could the teammates, whose strength was generally at the beginner level, possibly be a match for these intermediate level enemies? The teammate holding the sword and with a haggard face was hacked into pieces. He used his life to protect the captain in exchange for a glimmer of hope. Gul'dan still remembered that he always yelled about his 1 or 2-year-old daughter, and often took out a magic photo and showed it to Gul'dan. Look, this is my daughter. Isn't she cute? Ziodan, tell me which orc beauty you like and I'll help you get in touch with her. The always silent teammate holding a bow and arrow was shot in the throat by an enemy arrow. Blood was gushing out. He fell to the ground and looked at Gul'dan. Perhaps he felt that he was about to die, for when he wanted to speak to Gul'dan again, his throat was leaking air and he could not utter a word. He was anxious and opened and closed his mouth, but the whistling sound of wind in his throat became more frequent. Finally, he died with his eyes wide open and full of regret. Perhaps he regretted not speaking more to Gul'dan before he died. Gul'dan remembered that he had always been very silent and would not reveal a word about his background, but he was a trustworthy teammate at critical moments. The one holding the great shield risked his life as the enemy approached Gul'dan, but was ultimately defeated. Of the 4 teammates, 1 betrayed and 3 were killed, but with the desperate efforts of the teammates and Gul'dan's magic, 3 enemies were also killed. Perhaps the enemy wanted to torture Gul'dan deliberately, so they killed all the teammates who had been through thick and thin with him first. Woo! Just as Gul'dan closed his eyes to accept death, a long horn sounded. It was the orcs from the stone tribe who came to support him, led by the old shaman of the orc tribe. The enemy looked at the large number of orcs and realized that it was obviously not worth exchanging their lives for Gul'dan's, so they made a prompt decision and fled immediately. Gul'dan was also rescued by the people of the stone tribe, but he still had incurable poison and hidden injuries on his body. His strength could no longer improve, and he even had a tendency to decline. Now he has been reduced to the early intermediate level, and he doesn't have many years left. Small extra, a few days after Gul'dan and his crew were ambushed, there was a story that even Gul'dan didn't know. In an ordinary house, a woman looked at the little girl sleeping in the bed, and her tears burst out again like a flood. Just now, he received news of her husband's death from the Adventurers Association. His daughter also fell ill and fell asleep on the bed, like a vegetable, for a long time. Treating an illness costs a lot of money. If the daughter at home wasn't sick and needed money, who would give up the opportunity to accompany his family and become an adventurer who faces death every day? At the same time, in another corner of the city, an old beggar looked up at the night sky and murmured, "That kid has gone to be an adventurer. I hope nothing unexpected happens to him. I have to wait for him to come back and bring me some delicious food, old man." After saying that, he took a bite of the bread he had just picked up from the garbage dump. The taciturn archer was an orphan who was abandoned since childhood. He was found by this old beggar and then brought up. In a small house, several children huddled together timidly. There was a lot of food stored in the house, but what they wanted most at this moment was for him to come back safely. The tall middle-aged man holding the big shield has no children. These are all orphans he adopted. After all, when he picked up the big shield, he vowed to be a person who can protect others. P.S. Of course, Gul'dan didn't know any of this, and his teammates didn't tell him either. Now that decades have passed, perhaps these people have long disappeared in the long history just like the rest of the human race. If I didn't write this extra chapter, readers wouldn't know about these ordinary people. Maybe we are not like this too? After a life in this world, what can we leave behind, and what can we take away? Will we also perish in the long river of time like ordinary people? Make the most of your time, come on, people outside the screen. Chapter 46. Gul'dan's experience was like a vivid novel, which made the dragon sigh. However, Gul'dan concealed the fact that his physical condition was deteriorating day by day. After listening to Gul'dan's experience, Zeris became curious. "Can you show me the glory of the rock?" Gul'dan was not afraid that the red dragon would occupy the staff and not return it to him, because the staff had a long history of inheritance among the stone tribe and had the function of recognizing its master. What's more, there is also a contract to restrain the red dragon. Zeris took the staff of glory of the rock and took a quick look at it. As a red dragon, he could tell at a glance that the staff was of great value. Now holding it in his hand, he could get a close look at the magic enchanted on the staff. Zeris clicked his tongue. The heritage of the rock tribe is indeed a good thing. Returning the staff to Gul'dan, Zeris began to think about more important things. After learning from Gul'dan's experience that there are human kingdoms and adventurers' associations outside the northern forest, he suddenly had an idea and some ideas came to his mind. Gul'dan, do you have a map of the north? Of course, I was an adventurer before, after all, but this is still a map from a long time ago. As he spoke, Gul'dan took out a map of the northern plains. It's okay for the map to take a while longer. I can use it. Zeris took the map and examined it carefully. The entire map is made of the skin of an unknown animal. It is durable and even exudes a faint magical aura. It can be clearly felt that this is an enchanted map protected by magic. The existence of magic prevents the map from getting damp or being eaten by insects, making the entire map exude an ancient atmosphere without any damage. This made Zeris sigh with admiration at the ability of spellcasters, and at the same time he was full of expectations for his future career. After all, he had the prerequisites to become a spellcaster. The dragon's magical talent has a very high affinity for elements, and there is also a book of fire elemental magic that guides from scratch, not to mention that there is a spellcaster beside him, Gul'dan. Sweeping his eyes over Gul'dan, Zeris began to examine the map. The map marked the location of the orc tribe, right outside the woods. From a regional perspective, the orc tribe is the closest tribe to the human kingdom. An idea came to Zeris's mind, and he immediately asked Gul'dan, have any human adventurers come to the northern plains in recent years? The stone tribe is located on the outskirts of the forest, and Gul'dan did not hide too much. We haven't seen any human adventurers in the past few years. Ever since the molten mountain fire destroyed the northern forest area, human adventurers no longer dare to set foot there easily. As if fearing that the red dragon in front of him didn't know about the molten flame, Gul'dan added, Luo Shanyan, you should know that it is a red dragon like you, but much stronger than you. Zeris rolled his eyes, of course I know that. After a pause, Gul'dan continued, however, 3 years ago, there were loud noises deep in the mountains of the forest for several consecutive days. At that time, whether it was day or night, everything was illuminated by red light. After that day, I never saw the lava fire again. Zeris looked at Gul'dan with interest, so what do you think Molten Mountain is doing now? Gul'dan shook his head. I don't know. Maybe he is dormant. After all, the Molten Mountain fire rarely appears. Zeris nodded thoughtfully, so that's how it is. Gul'dan suddenly realized something and asked, as a red dragon, shouldn't you know better? You dragons are either sleeping or on your way to sleep. Even a casual sleep can take months. Zeris smiled and said, indeed, 3 years is just a matter of eating a few more meals and sleeping a few more times for me. Gul'dan was somewhat puzzled by the red dragon's sudden question, why are you asking about Molten Mountain Flame? What? Do you want to seek safety under his command? Zeris shook his head, nothing, I'm just curious. I won't join his forces. I'm a free dragon. I don't like being constrained. After listening to the red dragon's explanation, Gul'dan murmured, what a strange dragon. According to his own research on dragons, the mortality rate of 5-colored dragons is extremely high during their childhood, and they themselves are aware of this, so they will take the initiative to surrender to other 5-colored dragons and sign unequal contracts in order to seek protection from their own kind. Although after signing the unequal contract, the other 5-colored dragons' attitude towards the baby dragons is not particularly good, and they even use these baby dragons as cannon fodder at critical moments, but this is still safer than letting the baby dragons crawl and roll in nature and live in fear all the time. Gul'dan couldn't see through the red dragon in front of him. This young red dragon named Zeris seems to be unaware of the dangers of its infancy, or does it have enough confidence to deal with the disaster that may come at any time? On the other hand, although Zeris appeared relaxed on the surface, he was already thinking about his next move in his heart. Referring to Gul'dan's assessment of Molten Mountain's whereabouts, Zeris could feel other people's views on Molten Mountain from an outsider's perspective. Thanks to the dragon's habit of sleeping for several months or even several years, I am afraid that outsiders now will think like Gul'dan that the Molten Mountain is sleeping in the fire nest. As a result, due to the influence of the Molten Mountain, and without knowing for sure whether the Molten Mountain is in the northern forest, adventurers will not set foot in this place for the time being, which means that Zeris still has some time to develop. I am unfortunate, but also lucky. As luck would have it, the residual influence of the molten fire gave him enormous living space and development time. However, when the lava fire disappears long enough, the resources in the northern forest will inevitably attract everyone's attention, and all you can do is to develop well during this period of time. Thinking of this, Zeris picked up the book titled Fire Element Magic again. Item List, Staff. Glory of the Rock, Quality, High-Level Magic Item Introduction. This staff belongs to the long-standing Rock tribe. A long time ago, the Rock tribe was also a powerful tribe in the northern forest. The Rock tribe has a neighbor who is a gifted stone monitor lizard. The strength of this stone giant lizard has reached the terrifying master level when it reaches adulthood. And the stone monitor lizards with such powerful bloodline and potential are usually 1 in a million stone monitor lizard kings. However, the Rock tribe, which had a long history, was no ordinary tribe at that time. The stone tribe went to war with this powerful neighbor, and eventually defeated the stone lizard king, and used its heart to create the heart of the stone lizard king. Combined with the branches of the ancient tree, this staff was made. The heart of the stone lizard king looks like an ordinary stone, and it will not emit too dazzling light even when casting magic. So this is indeed a great low-key staff for home travel and to prevent robbery. Who would rob a staff that looks like a stone tied to a branch with vines? Staff enchantments. Heart of the stone lizard king, passive, greatly increases the bearer's affinity with the earth element. Power of earth element, passive. When the affinity with earth element reaches a certain level, earth element will flow in your blood, which can resist negative effects, such as burns, poisoning, slowdown, confusion, dizziness. Gravel storm, active, summons a powerful storm carrying gravel to protect yourself or attack the enemy. Rock shield, active, forms a magic shield to protect yourself. The higher the affinity with the earth element, the stronger the shield. Granite explosion, active, control 1 or more stones to explode, causing powerful damage. Chapter 47. However, reality obviously did not give Zeris much time. Outside the northern forests, there is a vast plain called the Northern Plains. In the eastern part of the Northern Plains, there is a human kingdom with a long history. The king's palace is located in the very center of the country, surrounded by other buildings like a moon surrounded by stars. In the palace hall, a middle-aged man with a crown and a beard was sitting on the throne. If you look closely, you can see a hint of melancholy and helplessness in his eyes. This is the king of the kingdom of Riarden, Clive Riarden. At this time, Clive was holding a letter and looking at it carefully, because the letter was sent by an informant and recorded intelligence about the hostile country. Because his father died early and he was the most outstanding and popular among the princes, young Clive ascended the throne at the age of 24. The kingdom of Lerden is located in the north, close to the forest. It has the best time, location, and people, and it is getting better and better under Clive's governance. Just when everything was going in the right direction, unfortunately, many years ago, Molten Mountain fire arrived in the northern forest. Molten Mountain attacked with great force, beating up all the other red dragons that lived deep in the northern forest and were unwilling to move. Then Molten Mountain officially declared the northern forest as its territory. This declaration means that outsiders are not allowed to enter the northern forest without permission. As a result, the kingdom of Lerden lost the northern forest, a large resource-rich area. You know, the northern forest is a woodland that attracts adventurers and is rich in resources, and the kingdom of Lerden is a famous country of northern adventurers. The fact that the northern forest became the Molten Flame territory was like a machete, directly cutting into the economic lifeline of the kingdom of Lerden. Molten Mountain Flame's method of occupying territory was indeed too overbearing, but due to Molten Mountain Flame's strength, the kingdom of Lerden had no choice but to give up this big piece of cake. Since then, the number of tourists and adventurers in the kingdom of Lerden has been decreasing, and the economy has been in recession. There is more than one kingdom called Leiden in the north, but coincidentally, Leiden is the country closest to the forest among these countries. Other countries have been jealous of this for a long time, but the kingdom of Leiden is not weak, with strong soldiers and horses, and backed by the northern forest and rich resources, so other countries dare not invade. The northern forest has been out of reach for several years now, and the strength of the kingdom of Lerden has been greatly weakened. Clive just learned from an informant's letter that all parties are ready to take action. If this continues, the country may be in danger. Thinking of this, Clive sighed deeply, crumpled the letter into a ball of paper, and threw it aside casually. He frowned and closed his eyes to think. The guards around Clive also lowered their heads when they saw this scene. Everyone knew the current situation of the kingdom. It could be described in one sentence: this is truly a critical moment for survival. After a long while, Clive opened his eyes and sighed, "Wait a little longer." Inside the cave in the northern forest, the first key to casting a spell is to build a magical pathway. Well, if you have already mastered the fire-inducing technique, please try it a few more times and feel it carefully. This is far more practical than what others can teach you. Zeris held the magic book in his hand and read it carefully word by word. Well, I'll try. Putting the magic book aside, Zeris thought about it. A ball of fire ignited in his dragon claws, and then he clenched his fist, and the fire went out. It is necessary to understand the principles of magic to release it, but it is always right to release it a few times, and practice makes perfect. After doing this for hundreds of times, Zeris realized the secret. The fire element beside him seemed to be moving according to his thoughts. Constructing a magic pathway requires not only magical talent, but also one's own mental strength as a guide, and fire starting technique is the simplest magic pathway. By gathering a small amount of fire elements together, one can start a fire. Gradually, he began to try to control the fire element that was getting farther and farther away from him. As the distance increased, Zeris could clearly feel that his ability to control the fire element was getting weaker and weaker, until it disappeared completely. Another doubt arose. Is it strength that determines the range of elemental control? Or is it mental strength? Or is it both? Thinking of this, Zeris walked out of the cave and planned to ask Gul'dan. That's right, as a spellcaster, Gul'dan was naturally left here by Zeris. Anyway, besides Gul'dan, the orc tribe also had another leader named Thorir. Chapter 48. Walking out of the cave, you can see Gul'dan sitting by the lake in a daze not far away, with a fishing rod and a wooden barrel standing next to him. He made the fishing rod and the wooden barrel himself. Fishing was what Gul'dan did when he was bored. At this moment, Gul'dan behaved like a leisurely old man, of course, both in terms of age and behavior. Zeris walked over. He was a little curious about Gul'dan. Why don't you study magic and improve your strength? Gul'dan shook his head and spread his hands. It's useless. I've been stuck at this stage for decades. Now that I'm here, I can let go of the things in the tribe and have a little peace. I've let it go. I won't learn any more. Zeris nodded thoughtfully. I see. You've become indifferent and started to give up, right? New words popped up in their ears. Almost all spellcasters could not escape the drive of curiosity, even Gul'dan. What does it mean to tank? Zeris pondered for a moment and explained, taking a slump means that since things are already so bad and can no longer be changed, you should just give up trying and not take any remedial measures, and just let things take their course. Gul'dan nodded. I guess so. Is this a special word in the ancient dragon language? I didn't know it when I was in the library before. The red dragon smiled mysteriously. Guess. Why did the young dragon in front of him know all this? Gul'dan was even more curious after hearing this, but Zeris refused to reveal anything. There was no way, so Gul'dan had to assume that this was the language that an ancestor of the red dragon in the dragon's legacy learned when he went to another strange plane. As Gul'dan's mind wandered, the fish took the bait. The leaf float in the water was pulled down by the fish. He grabbed the fishing rod with one hand and pulled it upwards. Although spellcasters are not warriors who rely on strength, their physical fitness is much stronger than that of ordinary people due to the long-term nourishment of magic. But at this time, it was not known whether Gul'dan did it on purpose or his body was really too old. The fish in the water and Gul'dan started to pull each other. Zeris glanced at Gul'dan. Do you want me to help you? No, no, no. After a fierce competition, the fish was finally pulled up. It turned out to be an ordinary grass carp. Gul'dan put the grass carp into the wooden barrel filled with water with satisfaction and continued to cast the rod. Only then did Zeris notice that there was no bait on the hook. Willing to take the bait? Zeris smiled lightly and did not ask too much why, because he still remembered the reason why he came to find Gul'dan. Gul'dan, I want to ask you a question. What is the range of elements that I can control related to? As he spoke, Zeris' mind moved, and a ball of fire ignited out of thin air in front of him. Gul'dan looked at the red dragon. To be honest, this was the most hard-working red dragon he had ever seen. Although this dragon's hard work was not even one-third of his own when he was young, it was indeed the case for giant dragons, especially five-colored dragons. Ordinary 5-colored dragons simply don't bother to learn because they have their own dragon heritage. The magic that other creatures have to work hard to master can be learned by just one sleep. The stage that other creatures can only reach in their entire lives can be reached by just one sleep, and it is possible to even surpass it by a lot. If you can become a top student by sleeping, how many people will study hard? Isn't it better to be happy and become stronger at the same time? But the red dragon did not choose this. Gul'dan didn't care. He had already lost the game anyway. Looking at the red dragon in front of him, he just wanted to teach it a lesson. The range of elements controlled depends on strength and also on mental strength. After saying that, he stretched out his right hand, and saw the earth elements not far away gathered together to form a sand ball out of thin air, and then formed a stone ball. Zeris nodded and asked the next question, that magical passage. Inside the kobold crypt, Doug returned to the dungeon extremely excited, with uncontrollable excitement revealed on his face. The other kobolds gathered around, asking a series of questions. Chief, have you seen the true dragon lord? Chief, what did the true dragon say to you? Leader. Facing the equally excited kobold clan, Doug suppressed his excitement and coughed lightly. Ahem, everyone, be quiet. Listen to me. After he finished speaking, the knoll crypt, which had been bustling just a moment ago, became almost silent, and everyone stared at Chief Doug with anticipation. I have good news for everyone. The Honorable Lord True Dragon wants us to live with him. As soon as the news came out, the whole place fell silent. After several seconds, cheers broke out in the kobold crypt. For dragon-born kobolds who worship real dragons, being able to serve real dragons is the supreme honor, enough for them to brag in front of other kobolds. But Doug's next sentence came again, but there is a limit on the number of people. The bustling dungeon fell silent again, and a few seconds later, it erupted again. Me. Choose me, choose me. A dog-headed man exerted force on his arms, posing and showing off his firm muscles. You should have chosen me. Look how strong I am. The other kobold pushed the posing kobold away and started flexing his muscles. Get out of the way. Your muscles are not as big as mine. You are all trash. I am the one who should serve Master True Dragon. The other kobold didn't pay any attention to the kobold who was showing off his muscles next to him. He stroked his bald head in a very showy manner, raised his eyebrows, and then raised one corner of his mouth into an exaggerated arc. A handsome kobold like me. I should be allowed to serve a real dragon. Soon, voices of dissatisfaction were heard. FKU, your mouth is so crooked. It's really embarrassing. Another kobold came over and punched him. Bah, you think you're so handsome? The doghead Kwiwa next door doesn't even bother with you, PUXIN doghead. When they found out that the places were limited, the dog-headed people started to recommend themselves, and some even fought for the places. Doug hurriedly stopped him. Everyone, this leader is fair and just. I will never favor any kobold, and I will make a careful selection. Let Master True Dragon see what we kobolds are like. Chapter 49. Another year has passed. It has to be said that the ogres are a natural mining race. They are extremely efficient at digging holes, and transforming caves is no problem for them at all. Today, the cave where Zeris lives has been transformed by the gnolls into a dungeon-like maze, and it is still expanding. As for the ogres who were not selected, they are still mining in the original dungeons and complaining and cursing. On the surface, with the joint efforts of the spider apes and orcs, all the predators in the surrounding areas were wiped out, and the scope of the spider web maze gradually expanded. With sufficient space and food resources, the number of mutated spiders is showing a tendency to surge, but it has only been a year, so it is just a momentum. Without paying too much attention to his subordinates, Zeris currently adopts a laissez-faire approach, leaving all affairs in the territory to the corrupt Gul'dan. Since Gul'dan has nothing to do and goes fishing every day, Zeris doesn't mind keeping him busy for a while. Although Gul'dan was dissatisfied, he finally couldn't stand the red dragon's constant nagging and had no choice but to accept it. Zeris studied magic as best he could. Time waits for no one, and although physical strength can only be accumulated over time, Zeris can use magic to further enhance his inner strength. In fact, dragons not only have abnormal physical fitness, but their magical talents are also far beyond the reach of ordinary creatures. As long as they successfully accept the dragon's inheritance, they will be born with the ability to sense magical elements. It should be noted that humans can only sense it after becoming a wizard. What's more, the dragon's innate affinity for elements is a characteristic that is beyond the reach of humans. Therefore, it is not unreasonable that dragons are the strongest creatures at the top of the food chain, but most dragons are too lazy to practice hard. After a year of hard work, Zeris has now successfully found a job as a mage. Of course, this is inseparable from his own talent and Gul'dan's guidance. What made Zeris speechless was that fire elemental magic only recorded magic related to the fire element, and did not mention other basic magics at all. For example, slowness, sleep, and swiftness. Fortunately, the methods of casting this type of spells are recorded in the Dragon's Legacy, and some spells that have not been recorded are also simply taught by Gul'dan. At this time, Zeris was testing magic in the jungle, and doing experiments was a necessary condition for a wizard to improve his strength, and it could expand the knowledge of the caster. TCYNNSA girls, fire element, listen to my command, turn into a fireball, and go. The spell was recited quickly, and the fire element energy in front of Zeris gathered rapidly and condensed into a fireball emitting billowing heat waves. Bang! Like a grenade explosion, a fireball shot out with a tail of flame and hit the big tree in front. The high temperature and shock wave acted on the tree simultaneously, turning a large area of the tree's surface into charcoal. Sparks scattered in the grass next to it, and the entire grass was quickly ignited by the sparks. Obviously, the temperature of the fireball is higher than it appears to the naked eye. The bushes were in his own burning field. Zeris put out the flames with a thought. He didn't want a forest fire to start because of his actions. Preventing forest fires and protecting forests is the responsibility of every individual. Zeris carefully observed the charred tree trunk, thinking deeply, and retreated to his previous position, reciting another completely different ancient dragon language from his mouth. Come and see, brother. Enjoy my fireball. As the fireball condensed, the terrifying temperature rose rapidly, causing the surrounding air to become distorted by the heat wave. At the same time, Zeris was under tremendous pressure from both the mental and physical levels, and forcibly constructed a magical pathway in the violent fire element. Boom! The fireball shot out rapidly with a long tail flame and hit the tree trunk. The loud noise like a howitzer exploding spread throughout the forest. The big tree fell down with a loud bang, and the air wave generated by the explosion raised a large cloud of dust. In the dust, Zeris saw the scene clearly. The trees that were blown up were ablaze, a large area of grass and leaves were ignited, and the entire scene became a sea of fire in the blink of an eye. He sighed inwardly and used burning field to extinguish the flames. The things left by our ancestors are the best. The first one is fireball, and the second one is also fireball, but the spells used to release the magic are different. Spells are the most critical link in communicating elemental energy, which will determine which element to communicate with and what type of spell to release, thus affecting the power of the spell. The first is the universal spell on the continent recorded in Fire Elemental Magic, which is a spell created by humans, elves, or some other races. With a little practice, this spell can produce a relatively normal fireball. The second spell that sounds more arrogant is the Ancient Dragon Language, which is a spell created by ancient dragons or dragon gods and recorded in the Dragon Heritage. It is a perverted and enhanced version of the fireball spell. If you think about it carefully, it is a dragon after all, and it has no humility towards elemental energy, so it is normal for it to be a little arrogant. After all, dragons have been defined as the highest level of life in the world since their birth. A simple little experiment. Dragon language magic is more difficult to master than ordinary magic and consumes more energy, but the corresponding effect is an increase in the power of magic. Introduction to the burning field. Each dragon has its own domain, such as the blue dragon's lightning domain, the black dragon's corrosion domain. The red dragon's is the burning flame field, which is determined by its own strength. The stronger the strength, the stronger the field. As long as the strength reaches a certain level, the red dragon can kill weak creatures in the burning flame field with just a thought. Zeris has briefly tested this kind of field. It seems powerful, but in fact it can only make bullying more efficient and more pretentious without having to do it yourself. However, the fire element in the burning flame field will be abnormally active, which is conducive to spellcasting and the replenishment of magical elements. The Molten Mountain Flame's name comes from its great power, which enables the burning flame field to melt the entire mountain into a volcano. This is the origin of the title Molten Mountain Flame. Chapter 50. On the other side, the king of the kingdom of Leyden, Clive, held a letter in his hand, his eyes becoming more and more solemn. According to the informant in the letter, the surrounding kingdoms have already begun to take action, which is not a good sign. It has been 4 years since Molten Mountain disappeared. An ordinary red dragon would only sleep for 3 years at most, but the situation of Molten Mountain is unknown. It is also possible that Molten Mountain turned over after a nap and went to sleep again. Clive's face was heavy, and he murmured, "Has the kingdom of Laerden come to an end?" After a moment of sadness, he seemed to have figured something out, and his eyes revealed determination and resoluteness. "No, we can't just sit there and wait for death." Clive turned and gave orders to the guards beside him. "Call Jode over here." The guard's expression revealed some doubts, but he still accepted the order and walked out of the palace hall. It didn't take long before the Legion commander, Jode, arrived. Before Jode could speak, Clive spoke first. "Jode, there is something very important. It concerns the survival of our country." Jode was stunned for a moment, then bowed to Clive on the throne. "Your Majesty, what do you want?" "Send someone to explore the depths of the northern plains to see if there is any molten mountain fire." Clive hadn't finished his words, but Jode already understood. The molten fire had disappeared for 4 years, and the kingdom of Reincarnation had no time to wait any longer. Instead of waiting to die, it was better to fight for a chance of survival. "Your Majesty, I will do my best to complete the mission. I will send an elite team from the Legion to conduct reconnaissance today." Clive waved his hand, and Jode wisely withdrew and began to select a reconnaissance team. After Jode left, the entire throne room fell silent again. The guards beside him performed their duties conscientiously. Only the king looked out the window with a sad face, looking far away in the direction of the northern forest. Northern forest at this time, Zeris and Gul'dan were standing in front of a giant corpse in the cave. Torches were hanging on the inner wall of the cave, emitting a faint light. This is the corpse of the stone lizard from a year ago, but it was preserved in a vacuum by Gul'dan using isolation. The corpse of a stone monitor lizard has more uses than just food. Its heart and lungs can be made into magical items, its skin can be used as high-quality leather armor, and its scales can be used as protection. It's just that Gul'dan didn't fully master those technologies a year ago, so he sealed the corpse to avoid waste. Now the Red Dragon Zeris agreed to give this corpse to Gul'dan to practice with, and the two of them conducted experiments together. To improve the rank of a mage, it is not only necessary to accumulate strength, but also to have a reserve of knowledge and understanding. This is why it is important for a mage to do experiments, to explore knowledge from experiments and improve strength. Gul'dan looked at the miserable state of the corpse and then at the Red Dragon, with doubt in his eyes. "Zeris, can you tell me how you killed this stone lizard?" Zeris shook his head mysteriously. "No, this is my secret." It was an expected reply. Gul'dan nodded and said nothing more. Gul'dan looked around and frowned. The environment here is too bad, and there are no sophisticated equipment for experiments. Zeris also frowned and looked around. How could he, a poor red dragon living in a remote corner of the mountains, have sophisticated experimental equipment? "It seems that even if I were to be reborn as a dragon, I would still need money to solve the problem, not to mention the expensive mage profession." He sighed slowly. "Alas Gul'dan, don't be so harsh, just bear with it." Gul'dan also knew that there was no way to change the current situation. Gul'dan used Hand of the Mage, and a blue translucent palm condensed in the air. Then the hand picked up a cheap machete forged by a kobold nearby and planned to cut open the stone monitor's belly. An awkward situation occurred because the knife was understood to be used for chopping and slashing, not stabbing. Therefore, the tip of the knife was not made very sharp, and the skin of the stone monitor lizard was hard, so the knife could not pierce the skin of the stone monitor lizard. In fact, this was also expected, because the spider ape, who had the strength of a first-level peak warrior, could hardly pierce the scales and skin of the stone monitor lizard with a spear, let alone a machete. The autopsy process was forced to be stopped because the incision could not be made. The blue mage's hand stayed in the air. Gul'dan rolled his eyes, turned his head and looked at the red dragon, then spread his hands and smiled, and a bit of embarrassment appeared in the air.
If you're enjoying the story so far and want to hear the next parts, don't forget to like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And if you'd like me to continue the series, drop a comment below letting me know. Your feedback and support keep these audiobooks going strong. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.